Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the fanfiction guy. Back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Becomes Angel Vengeance? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Today was the day Izuku would discover his quirk. He eagerly asked his mother while they drove to the doctor's office what kind of quirk she thought he would get. Inko responded, curious about what he wanted. Izuku expressed his desire for a quirk that would allow him to be a hero and help people, his bright smile reflecting his enthusiasm. He admired his friend Katsuki Bakugo's powerful quirk and wished for one just as strong. Upon arriving at the doctor's office, the doctor greeted them and explained that he would need to take a bit of blood. Izuku, undeterred, presented his arm with a smile, and the doctor drew his blood without any hesitation. The doctor complimented Izuku on his bravery, to which Izuku replied that he wanted to be a hero and that this was nothing. After analyzing the blood, the doctor returned with surprising news. He revealed that Izuku's quirk was called Holy Judge. Inko, taken aback by the name, asked for details. The doctor explained that Izuku would have the ability to know what crimes someone had committed and the reasons behind them. He could visualize those crimes and even discern when someone was lying, compelling them to tell the truth. Additionally, he would be stronger, faster, and smarter than the average person. Inko, still in shock, confirmed with the doctor that everything he said was true and asked if there was more to it. The doctor assured her that while everything on the paper was accurate, the quirk could evolve under unknown circumstances. Grateful, Inko thanked the doctor for his help, and Izuku, practically vibrating with excitement, proclaimed that he could definitely help people with his new abilities. Later that day, he met his friend Katsuki Bakugo, whom he called Kaken, and excitedly shared the news about his quirk. Katsuki thought it was cool but insisted that he was still better. 6 years passed since Izuku discovered his quirk, and much had changed. Just 2 days after the doctor's visit, he began to see lists of crimes when he looked at someone for too long. By focusing on a specific crime, he could understand the reasons behind it and, if he chose, even witness the crime itself. This realization led him to understand that no one was purely innocent, and he soon developed the ability to tell when someone was lying. He confided in his mother about these developments, and Inko helped him navigate the complexities of morality. She explained that the world was not simply black and white but rather a spectrum of gray, where sometimes one must make difficult choices for the greater good. Initially confused, Izuku began to grasp this concept, aided by his growing intelligence. Inko, a freelance worker who assisted in court with her quirk that compelled truthfulness, was all too aware of the darker sides of humanity. 2 years later, Izuku had been saving his money and learning online, finding school easy. He pursued various interests, from martial arts to investing, and by the end of 4 years, he had surpassed most high school curricula. One day, he approached his mother with a request to help him invest his savings in some businesses he had researched. Inko, surprised by his ambition, cautioned him about the risks, but Izuku assured her he was confident in his choices. 2 years later, at the age of 12, Izuku's investments had paid off significantly, leaving him with a considerable fortune. He dedicated himself to physical training, mastering martial arts and swordsmanship. However, one day, upon returning home, he discovered that the door had been smashed in. Panic surged through him as he called the police and rushed inside, calling for his mother. When he reached her room, he froze in horror. She lay in a pool of blood, a note beside her reading, "This is what you get for working with the pigs," with "snitch" scrawled on the wall in blood. When the police arrived, they concluded that one of the individuals Inko had exposed as a liar had sought revenge. Unfortunately, without concrete evidence, they could not make an arrest. After the police left, Izuku began to hyperventilate, overwhelmed by the realization that he could see the crimes of the officers who had responded. Each of the 3 officers had a history of bribery, extortion, and assault, with one even having committed abuse. The weight of this knowledge was too much, and he fainted. In the following week, after mourning his mother, he received a message from the court regarding his inheritance, which included his house and a substantial sum of money. This prompted a deep reflection within him. He resolved to help people and bring those who had escaped justice to light, determined to expose the injustices of the world and ensure that everyone faced the consequences of their actions. As he contemplated this mission, he felt a strange sensation in his back, accompanied by a splitting headache. He passed out from the pain, and when he regained consciousness, he was shocked to discover that he had grown wings. The realization hit him that his quirk had evolved into the Angel of Justice. The condition was to have a massive desire to bring justice to those who had escaped it. Izuku realized he could now control manipulated light and holy energy, taking on the forms of the Angel of Judgment and the Angel of Justice. He could fly and absolve people of their sins if he had a good reason for why they deserved a second chance. If successful, he would gain a power that could be used to help them. By looking into someone's eyes, he could make them experience all the pain they had inflicted on others, allowing them to repent and understand their actions. Determined to help those who deserved it, Izuku recognized that some heroes were not as noble as they seemed. With the police failing to uphold justice, he decided he must become a vigilante. He began his preparations. After a long rest, he started working and planning. His first training focused on getting used to moving with his wings and flying, while also adapting to his new levels of strength, speed, and intelligence. Learning to manipulate light and holy energy became his top priorities. 2 weeks later, Izuku felt he had gained a good grip on his new capabilities. He had been working out at the same intensity as before without overexerting himself and had completed his online high school classes. He planned to start college-level classes soon and needed to sort out his living situation. His mother had arranged for him to be emancipated upon her passing, granting him legal freedom. He sold his childhood home and purchased a plot of land in a forest with a cabin. As he looked back at his childhood home one last time, he felt a pang of nostalgia but knew he had to move on. He left without any warning, determined to embrace his new life. In his secluded area, he began to practice controlling light and learned several important lessons. Light could be extremely hot, could temporarily blind him if he wasn't careful, could cause explosions, and was incredibly fast. He had already set up the cabin with essentials like water, power, and Wi-Fi. He also started learning psychology and persuasion, making steady progress despite his busy schedule. Finally, he decided to test out the holy energy. Focusing intently, he recalled that holy energy should heal wounds and encourage plant growth. He was surprised to find plants around him growing larger, but then noticed he was covered in vines, a humorous mishap in his training. 3 years later, at the age of 15, Izuku had made remarkable progress. He had achieved expert-level control over light and commendable control over holy energy. He learned to create things with light and heal with precision using holy energy. He had made a name for himself as the vigilante Azrael, known for providing evidence of crimes by showing memories or compelling the truth on video. While he was well-liked, he also faced criticism for exposing villains he had helped. Flashback to a year and a half earlier, when he encountered a new villain known as the Sludge Villain. After reviewing the villain's crime list and motivations, he decided to approach him. He flew down silently and introduced himself. The Sludge Villain was surprised to see Azrael and initially thought he was there to arrest him. However, Izuku explained that he wanted to offer help instead. He began recording their interaction, revealing that everyone had seen his videos but no one had asked about his quirk. He explained that his quirk, called the Angel of Justice, allowed him to see the wrong someone had done and offer them a chance for redemption. Izuku offered to absolve the Sludge Villain's sins, explaining that if he had a good reason for a second chance, he would gain a power to help him. However, he warned that trying to absolve a truly evil person would result in a curse. The Sludge Villain hesitated, asking why Azrael would help someone like him. Izuku reassured him that regardless of his actions, he was still human and deserved a chance to change. He emphasized that society often judged people based on their quirks, but he believed that a person's character mattered more than their abilities. Izuku's conviction was clear. A strong quirk in the wrong hands could lead to villainy, while a villainous quirk could be heroic in the right hands. He offered the Sludge Villain a chance to start anew, leaving the decision in his hands. Izuku had learned that the world was rarely black or white, but mostly shades of gray. He asked again if he could offer his help. Sludge, in tears, expressed a desire to be seen as normal. Izuku smiled and assured him that he could help. He began to condense holy energy and spoke a prayer, asking for forgiveness for the souls of the faithful departed, hoping they could avoid judgment and enjoy everlasting light. A warm light enveloped them, bringing calm to the sludge villain while Izuku felt a surge of new power within himself. He explained that the power he had gained was quirk alteration, which could be used 3 times per person. He offered to modify Sludge's quirk, allowing him to turn it on and off, change its color to light purple, and transform only his limbs and parts of his body into slime. Sludge expressed his gratitude, and Izuku chuckled, preparing to cover Sludge's new face to ensure his anonymity. Once ready, Izuku turned to the camera, explaining that this was why he chose to be a vigilante. Society often created villains by labeling certain quirks as evil. He then turned off the camera. Izuku asked Sludge if he wanted to see how he looked now. Sludge, confused, inquired why he was being called Slime. Izuku handed him a mirror, clarifying that he preferred the name Slime over Sludge, as it felt more respectful given the changes to his quirk. Sludge was shocked when he looked in the mirror and expressed his heartfelt thanks to Izuku. Izuku handed Sludge some money, wishing him well on his new start. Sludge was taken aback by the kindness shown to him, remarking that it was one of the few times someone had treated him with such compassion. 2 days later, after Izuku uploaded the video of their interaction, the news reported on the vigilante Azrael, highlighting his views on society. While some voiced their disapproval, many others viewed him positively. Izuku chuckled, stating that he cared little for public opinion and would continue to help others, regardless of the world's stance against him. In addition to building his reputation, Izuku made significant progress in his studies, achieving master's degrees in quirk science, therapy, engineering, biology, and analysis. He also made profitable investments. The most significant event during this time was his encounter with All Might, where he emerged victorious and shared the footage online. Flashback to 6 months ago, Izuku, in his vigilante persona, had just dropped off some criminals at the police station when All Might confronted him. Izuku immediately began recording their interaction. All Might demanded that he surrender to avoid violence. Izuku responded, stating that he was a vigilante who always provided evidence of the crimes committed by those he targeted. Despite this, All Might insisted on arresting him for breaking the law. Izuku reviewed his own actions and noted that All Might had very few wrongs on his record, primarily the failure to assist those who were quirkless, despite having once been in their position. All Might was shocked and asked how Izuku knew this. Izuku explained that his quirk allowed him to see the wrongs people had committed and the reasons behind them. He elaborated on the dire situation of quirkless individuals, who often faced severe mistreatment and were driven to despair. All Might, horrified, questioned why he had never heard of this and why no one had helped. Izuku urged him to investigate for himself, pointing out that society defined people by their quirks, leading to the neglect of those deemed weak or villainous. He challenged All Might to remember his roots and to take action to help those in need. Moved to tears, All Might acknowledged his oversight and vowed to rectify his mistake. Izuku expressed his happiness at being able to remind him of his beginnings, and they prepared to fight. All Might agreed to engage, and Izuku offered him the chance to learn more about his quirk before their battle. However, All Might declined, stating that it was his responsibility to stay informed. As the fight commenced, All Might charged at Izuku with incredible speed, attempting to land a punch. Izuku created a barrier of light that blocked the attack and absorbed the shockwave. All Might was astonished that Izuku had easily defended against his strike, realizing the strength of his opponent. Izuku explained that he chose to be a vigilante because the system was corrupt, allowing many evils to be ignored simply due to the strength of certain quirks or heroic backgrounds. He refused to be a mere figurehead in a flawed system. Izuku refused to smile and wave at the masses while knowing that people were suffering because of circumstances beyond their control. He explained that his holy energy only affected those who were evil or had committed terrible acts. When he created his holy light weapons, they inflicted more damage on those with darker hearts. At worst, it would feel like a sharp metal rod or a paintball. He crafted a holy light dagger and gun. All Might expressed his shock at the situation, acknowledging the terrible things happening in the world. Izuku chuckled, reminding All Might that no one was purely innocent and that not all heroes deserved their title. As the battle commenced, Izuku took the initiative, rushing forward while flapping his wings for a speed boost. All Might attempted to intercept him with a punch but realized too late that Izuku had jumped over him. While airborne, Izuku shot him twice in each shoulder and quickly jabbed him twice with his dagger at specific pressure points, causing All Might to freeze in place. All Might questioned why he couldn't move and how Izuku had managed to make him bleed, believing that Izuku could only harm those who were evil. Izuku chuckled again, explaining that he had targeted All Might's pressure points, rendering him immobile for up to an hour. He added that sometimes, to do good, one must engage in a little bad, emphasizing that no one was entirely innocent. He addressed the crowd, declaring that he had just defeated the #1 hero. He stated that everyone should be held accountable for their actions, regardless of their status. He assured them that he would not harm All Might further, as he had not committed any evil acts, and then turned off the camera drone. All Might, now aware of the recording, expressed concern about what Izuku planned to do with the video. Izuku reassured him that he had always recorded his encounters as a vigilante and that All Might was no exception. He explained that his quirk revealed the wrongs people had committed, which was why he had mentioned All Might's forgotten roots. All Might acknowledged his oversight in not considering the implications. Izuku offered to heal All Might's wound before leaving, enveloping himself in light and holy energy. He explained that this was his Angel of Judgment form, which could heal any injuries of those who were good. All Might was enveloped in the light, feeling his breathing ease and the pain in his stomach dissipate until he felt completely healed. All Might expressed his gratitude, overwhelmed with emotion. Izuku, chuckling, stated that it was his honor to assist someone who had done so much good. He then prepared to call the authorities and bid farewell to Yagi. 3 days later, the public was buzzing about the vigilante Azrael and his viral video featuring his confrontation with All Might. This raised significant questions about Azrael's claim that All Might had once been quirkless and the true extent of Azrael's strength. Many individuals, particularly those with mutant or villainous quirks, began sharing their experiences online, resonating with Azrael's views on society. A prominent leader in this movement sent a letter addressing questions about Azrael's motives. The letter stated that while All Might had been a symbol of heroism, Azrael was emerging as a symbol of justice, a neutral judge who would hold anyone accountable for their wrongdoings, regardless of their status as hero or villain. The writer expressed that the presence of someone powerful speaking out had ignited a fire among those who had suffered for circumstances beyond their control. They emphasized that it was not wrong for the wronged to seek justice, but rather for those who had ignored the injustices until now. The writer shared their own experience with a villainous quirk called Poison Beast, which allowed them to produce poison and had resulted in their own suffering. They felt compelled to speak out now that someone strong was demanding attention. The news anchor thanked the writer for their insights and invited viewers to share their thoughts on the matter. Izuku reflected on his role as a beacon for those who had been wronged, helping them find the strength to speak out and demand change. In the present, Izuku faced a new challenge. A curious Nizu was trying to uncover information about him. Shortly after the fight with All Might, Izuku found himself in a meeting with Nizu and other pro-heroes from UA, discussing the video of the confrontation. Nizu initiated the conversation, prompting the heroes to share their thoughts. Eraserhead noted Izuku's skill, acknowledging the knowledge and practice required to use pressure points effectively, especially with such speed and precision. Nizu acknowledged the knowledge of biology and martial arts possessed by the individual in question. He noted that if the videos were any indication, the person had been truthful about their quirk. However, Nizu expressed concern about the danger it posed and the challenges of aligning their ideology with the heroes. Present might question the rationale behind trying to recruit this individual. Midnight, curious, asked what the quirk was. Nizu explained that the quirk could be invaluable for a hero, especially given the individual's substantial following and influence. He warned that simply imprisoning them could lead to significant public backlash. Nizu elaborated that throughout the videos, the individual had discussed their quirk multiple times. All Might, reflecting on his experiences with the person, confirmed that they had not lied, suggesting they possessed hidden powers and could indeed perform as claimed. Midnight pressed for more. Nizu continued, revealing the abilities of the quirk, the ability to control light, manipulate what was referred to as holy energy, discern lies, and witness the wrongdoings of others, including the reasons behind those actions. The individual could also display these crimes for others to see, heal injuries, and had two forms, though only one had been verified. Additionally, they could fly and had demonstrated the ability to absolve others of their sins, gaining powers to assist them in return. Nizu mentioned a specific incident where the individual had altered the quirk of a villain known as the sludge villain, transforming it significantly. All Might, hearing this for the first time, expressed surprise at the individual's willingness to help a villain and inquired about the nature of the change made to the villain's quirk. Nizu explained that while the villain's face had been obscured in the video, the changes included the ability to shift between human and slime forms, a color change to light purple, and the capacity to transform parts of their body into slime. The individual had helped the sludge villain after understanding their past and motivations, stating that every person, regardless of their actions, deserved compassion and assistance. The heroes listened in stunned silence, with Eraserhead acknowledging the truth in the individual's words about society's focus on quirks rather than the person behind them. The group was hesitant to voice their agreement openly, but Nizu sought their thoughts on how to proceed with this vigilante. All Might shared his experience, revealing that the individual had healed his old injury without causing harm and had even called the police when he was unable to move. He expressed his belief that they were not a threat to those who had not committed crimes, suggesting that their actions were justified in cases of selfish wrongdoing. Nizu concurred, emphasizing the importance of recruiting such a powerful healer, as their abilities could save countless lives. He proposed that they begin planning and gathering more information about the individual. Meanwhile, Izuku had just completed his patrol and was heading home when he spotted a child from above. As he descended, he noticed that she was injured and had a troubling past marked by a single incident of involuntary manslaughter, which had occurred when her quirk had awakened something beyond her control. Transforming back to his true form, Izuku hovered above her, taking in her condition. She appeared hurt, dirty, scared, and crying, evoking feelings of sadness and anger within him for what had happened to her. Wires lay scattered on the ground around her. Izuku spoke gently, trying not to frighten her further. He asked what had happened and why she was in such a state. The child, Eri, looked up in surprise, her eyes wide as she recognized him. She referred to him as an angel, prompting a soft chuckle from Izuku as he landed in front of her and crouched down. He inquired who had caused her injuries, suspecting it might have been her family. Eri responded with distress, explaining that her mother no longer wanted her and that a man with bird-like features had hurt her. She expressed her fear of being put back together again, pleading for help. Izuku felt a mix of horror and anger upon hearing her story. He offered to heal her and take her with him, hoping to provide her some comfort. Eri, both frightened and hopeful, asked if it would hurt and if he would harm her. He reassured her that he would never hurt her and began to heal her wounds. Using his holy energy, he carefully stitched her injuries closed, taking his time to ensure she was not frightened by the process. When he was finished, she was still sleeping, clinging to him. He picked her up and flew home, planning to ask her more questions after she had slept, eaten, and gotten cleaned up in some new clothes. Izuku just returned home with the child. He looked down at her, wondering who could injure a child so badly. He decided it was best to get her to bed, placing her gently in his own bed before settling down on the couch for the night. Early in the morning, around 5 a.m., he was awakened by faint sounds of panic. He got up to check on his little guest. When he saw her, Izuku rushed to her side and spoke softly, reassuring her. He told her everything was fine, that she was safe, and reminded her who he was with a calming smile, trying to help her relax. Eri, still frightened, recognized him and whispered his name. Izuku chuckled softly, confirming that she was in his home and asking if she had a nightmare. Eri nodded, looking down at her lap. He sat on the bed and hugged her, rubbing circles on her back to soothe her. He offered to stay with her while she slept so she wouldn't feel alone. Eri thought for a moment before nodding against his chest. He chuckled again and lay down beside her, stroking her hair until he noticed she had fallen asleep. He soon followed her into slumber. They had returned home around 3 a.m. Izuku woke up at 8 a.m. to find Eri had climbed on top of him, which he found quite adorable. He gently told her it was time to get up. Eri slowly woke, rubbing her face against his chest, which he thought was absolutely charming. He encouraged her to get up, saying he needed to make her some food. Eri hesitated, worried about asking for things, but her rumbling stomach betrayed her. Izuku picked her up and carried her to the kitchen, placing her on a chair. He began making pancakes with apple slices. Once they were ready, he served them to her while asking for her name and sharing his own so he wouldn't have to keep calling her child. Eri was surprised by the delicious smell and asked Izuku what it was while struggling to use the fork. He took the fork from her and fed her himself. Eri exclaimed how good it was, apologizing as she explained that she was usually only given pills and water. Izuku felt a wave of disgust at whoever had treated her that way. Izuku reassured Eri that it was fine for her to express herself freely and that she could enjoy more delicious food later. He suggested they finish up and get her cleaned, mentioning that he had already ordered her some new clothes that would be at the front door. Eri nodded hesitantly. After cleaning her up, he noticed her looking down and asked what was wrong. Eri expressed her concern about her scars, wondering if they were ugly. Izuku felt a wave of sadness and explained that scars were not something to be ashamed of, they were a testament to survival and strength. He emphasized that the strongest individuals are those who have faced suffering yet continue to move forward. He encouraged her not to see her scars as ugly but as symbols of her resilience. Eri, having endured many hardships, had matured quickly and understood his words. Despite this, she continued to cry, prompting Izuku to gently slide her head and reassure her that he did not find her scars ugly, and neither should she. After her bath and a change of clothes, he offered her a cup of hot chocolate to help her calm down. He then asked if she could tell him who had hurt her and why. Eri hesitated, asking if he would take her back. Izuku firmly stated that he would not, as he wanted to ensure the person responsible faced consequences for their actions. Taking a few shaky breaths, Eri shared her story, detailing the abuse she had suffered. Izuku recorded her testimony, ensuring her face and hair were obscured in the video. As he listened, his anger grew at the horrific things she had endured, being cut, stabbed, beaten, mentally abused, neglected, and abandoned by her mother. The worst of it was the repeated trauma she had experienced, feeling as though she had been killed over and over again. Once he stopped the recording, he embraced her, wanting to comfort the sobbing child and also to contain his own rage at the thought of the perpetrator. He assured her that from now on, she would stay with him and that no one would hurt her again. Eri expressed feelings of being a curse, but Izuku reassured her that she was just a child who had suffered at the hands of a monster. Eri lamented that she had made her father disappear, to which Izuku offered to help change her quirk if she wished. He emphasized that what had happened was not her fault. Eri agreed, and Izuku prepared to use his powers to help her. As he focused on condensing holy light around her, he aimed to change her quirk and absolve her of her past. He recited a prayer, seeking forgiveness for all the souls affected by suffering. Izuku gained a new power called Father's Blessing, which allowed him to mark children under 16 as family, enabling him to be notified if they were in danger or injured. This power would also create a calming presence for children 12 and under, fostering trust and affection. However, it came with a strong instinct to protect children in peril. Reflecting on the power's implications, Izuku felt a mix of sadness and determination. He understood that he could only gain powers that aligned with what the person he absolved needed most. Eri had been abandoned due to her father's fate and had been alone for far too long. What she truly needed was a family. With a gentle hand on her head, he changed her quirk. The modifications allowed her to activate her abilities at will rather than through emotions. She could use her quirk on herself for a limited duration with a cooldown PRD, and she could also age objects, though it would require more energy than reversing age. After explaining the changes to her, Izuku reassured Eri that she would no longer accidentally activate her quirk. In response, she lunged at him, clinging to his chest and thanking him repeatedly until she eventually fell asleep. As she rested, Izuku began searching for information on the individuals who had harmed Eri, determined to ensure they faced justice. He felt a sense of purpose, knowing he would not let them escape the consequences of their actions. 2 days later, Izuku had spent the time caring for Eri and investigating the man she referred to as Birdman. After putting her to bed, he stood outside their base, releasing 2 drones to follow and record everything. In a booming voice that echoed throughout the area, he declared that judgment was coming for those who had exploited an innocent child, promising to show them the true meaning of suffering and to punish them for the pain they had inflicted on Eri. And overhaul, one should be ready to feel true suffering, for the punishment will be special. After hearing this, the now identified Yakuza group's goons poured out of the building, but many froze when they saw Azrael outside. He began to glow as he spoke, expressing his disdain for their crimes and the reasons behind them. He could see that none of them were innocent, and they would face not just Azrael but the Angel of Justice. As he finished speaking, light surrounded him, and he declared that the world should fear not a demon, but an angel's anger. Izuku then began to confront the goons, deciding that the best way to ensure they couldn't harm anyone else was to alter their quirks. He used his ability on each goon, making their quirks inactive, effectively rendering them quirkless. He remarked that since their group's goal was to return the world to a time before quirks, it only made sense for them to accept this change. Before the goons could respond, they were quickly enveloped in a curtain of light and trapped. Izuku then headed inside, where he encountered one of the 8 bullets, known as Rappa. Rappa, whose quirk was Strong Arm, was obsessed with fighting and only followed Overhaul because he respected strength. Izuku warned Rappa that his weapons would inflict more damage based on the wrongs he had committed, urging him to prepare himself. Rappa, undeterred, charged at Izuku, spinning his arms to build momentum before slamming both fists down. Izuku, appearing bored, blocked the attack with his sword, leaving a significant indent in the ground but remaining unfazed. In an instant, he appeared behind Rappa, slashing him across the back, causing him to fall over in pain. Izuku chuckled, explaining that the damage was not just physical. The worse one was, the more it hurt mentally. He intended this to be a punishment and proceeded to deactivate Rappa's quirk. Rappa, too focused on his pain, soon lost consciousness. Continuing through the compound, Izuku encountered 3 more of the 8 bullets: Hekiji Tengai, who could create energy shields, Yuhojo, who could grow crystals on his body, and Mimic, who could merge with objects. They were simple to take down, but he knew the next few would be more challenging. Next, he faced another trio, Didoro Sakaki, whose quirk made others drunk, Toya Setsuno, who could steal anything his target possessed, and Soramitsu Tabe, who could bite, chew, and digest anything he touched. This fight proved interesting as Izuku initially felt dizzy and confused, suspecting it was one of their quirks. Spotting one of them consuming alcohol, he quickly summoned his revolver and shot the individual multiple times, incapacitating him and deactivating his quirk. However, his gun was then taken from him by Toya, who soon learned that trying to hold a weapon infused with pure light and holy energy while lacking control over it was a grave mistake, resulting in burns. Izuku, nicknaming Soramitsu Mr. Mouth, unleashed a blast of light at him and then shot both remaining foes in the shoulder and thigh, deactivating their quirks before moving on. Finally, he found the last 2 in front of Overhaul's room, Rikiya Katsukame, whose quirk allowed him to absorb vitality through physical contact, and Shin Nemoto, whose quirk forced victims to answer truthfully. Knowing the potential danger of Shin's ability, Izuku swiftly shot him in the thigh and shoulder before he could ask any questions. Rikiya, realizing the situation, declared that if he was going down, it would be with a fight. He pulled out a syringe and injected himself, causing him to shake and laugh maniacally. Rikiya felt an exhilarating rush, realizing the power of the trigger quirk-enhancing drag. He sensed he could achieve so much more without needing to make physical contact. Simply being close enough would suffice. To test this newfound ability, he began to drain energy from Izuku and Shin's, growing in size and strength. With a confident challenge, Rikiya taunted Izuku, who was armed with a sword and gun. Izuku, undeterred, responded with a smirk, ready for the confrontation. Rikiya, fueled by his power, charged at Izuku while continuing to siphon his energy. Just before Rikiya could strike, Izuku deftly slid between his legs, using daggers to pin Rikiya's feet in place. As bullets struck Rikiya in the shoulder and thigh, Izuku felt a sense of justice, believing that since they were of the same rank, they should endure the same pain. He quickly deactivated their quirks, leaving Rikiya vulnerable. Overhaul, witnessing the chaos, shouted in disbelief, realizing that Izuku was the one who had invaded his territory. He demanded the return of his cure, especially for the sake of the children involved. Izuku, unfazed, explained the dire situation Overhaul was in. He had dismantled Overhaul's organization, defeated his strongest ally, and captured him. Izuku intended to delve into Overhaul's memories, planning to punish him with a power he had yet to reveal to the world. As Izuku revealed Overhaul's dark past, his drag dealing, extortion, and the inhumane experiments he conducted, he felt a surge of anger. The atrocities committed against Eri and others were more horrific than he had imagined. By the end of the memories, Izuku was seething with rage, convinced that Overhaul deserved the punishment he was about to receive. With determination, Izuku declared that any hesitation he had felt about Overhaul's punishment was gone. He explained to the camera that his hidden power allowed him to make someone feel the pain they had inflicted on others. This was just the beginning of Overhaul's punishment. As Izuku locked eyes with Overhaul and activated his power, the villain could only scream, reliving every moment of pain he had caused. By the end, Overhaul appeared hollow, stripped of his arrogance. But Izuku was not finished. He turned to the camera and announced his intention to deactivate Overhaul's quirk and alter it to make it less dangerous, ensuring that if Overhaul ever regained his abilities, he would be significantly weakened. Hearing the changes to his quirk, Overhaul finally fainted from shock. Izuku, addressing the camera, expressed his desire for justice for Eri. He acknowledged that while he wanted to exact revenge, he needed to remain impartial. He stated that anyone who harmed a child had lost their right to be seen as human. He would share everything online, making it clear that there were consequences for such actions. After dropping Overhaul to the ground, Izuku shot him in the thighs and shoulders, asserting that a leader should bear the brunt of the punishment for their crimes. He planned to call the police, inform them of what had transpired, and return to caring for Eri. He turned off the drones, contacted the authorities, and headed home, where he edited videos documenting the events, from rescuing Eri to the raid on Overhaul, and posted them online. Finally, he lay down next to a sleeping Eri, hoping for her recovery. The following day, news outlets buzzed with the story of Izuku's actions against the Yakuza. Reports detailed how the police responded to a call from the vigilante Azrael, who informed them of multiple injuries at an old factory complex. 2 hours later, Azrael posted a series of videos, starting with a heart-wrenching image of a child with obscured features, clearly injured. Viewer discretion was advised. The video featured an interview with the child, who recounted her traumatic experience. Listeners were filled with rage as Azrael confirmed the truth of her story using his quirk. Following this, Azrael shared footage of his raid on the Yakuza, revealing their production of quirk-enhancing drags and bullets made from the child's blood. He made it clear that he would not tolerate anyone who harmed children, leaving a powerful message for all to hear. Many agreed that the Yakuza got what they deserved and hoped for the little girl's recovery. Goodbye for now, everyone. Nizu, the UA heroes, and All Might gathered together. Nizu expressed hope that everyone had watched the new videos posted by Azrael and asked for their thoughts on it. All Might shared his feelings of disgust, knowing a child had endured such hardship without help. Eraser had agreed, noting that at least the child was safe now and that Azrael had become her guardian angel, as he mentioned in the video. Nizu then prompted discussion about Azrael's actions against the Yakuza. Present Mike pointed out that none of the Yakuza had died or suffered critical injuries, and he believed that taking their quirks away was a wise decision, as it removed their threat. Midnight added her thoughts, finding it intriguing that Azrael had used his quirk alteration ability. She speculated that if he were captured and forced to comply, he could potentially restore quirks to everyone except the leader, since he could only use it once per person. Nizu agreed with them, noting that in the video where Azrael interviewed the child, her face and hair were obscured, but the background revealed a forested area, suggesting he lived in a secluded location. With the new information that a child would be living with him, they had more leads to pursue in their search. All Might expressed his growing belief that Azrael should be considered a hero. He noted that Azrael had shown restraint during the raid, indicating he had developed a bond with the child and preferred to act as an impartial judge rather than letting personal emotions drive him. He admired Azrael's compassion and understanding of how villains are created, wanting to help them rather than simply defeating them. Nizu acknowledged All Might's points, emphasizing that Azrael's powers seemed to affect only those with malicious intent. He recalled how Azrael's shot had barely harmed All Might, while it had been effective against the Yakuza and had penetrated Overhaul. They decided to start searching with these new leads. Stain remarked that Azrael was undoubtedly a true hero and expressed his hope to meet him one day to witness his heroism firsthand. All for One considered Azrael a potential problem but dismissed him as merely strong and not particularly special, unaware that Azrael had healed All Might. Later that day, Izuku was preparing food for Eri when he heard her crying. He rushed into the room to find the news discussing Overhaul's condition, revealing that he was now quirkless and detailing his injuries. Upon seeing Izuku, Eri hugged him tightly, repeatedly thanking him. Izuku reassured her that she didn't need to thank him, as Overhaul deserved what he got, and she deserved to be happy. As Eri continued to cry, she hugged him tighter. After a while, Izuku picked her up and brought her to the kitchen, sitting her at the table. He announced that dinner was ready and that he had made something special for her. Eri's eyes lit up with excitement as she admired the food, asking if she could really eat it. Izuku encouraged her to enjoy as much as she wanted. After Eri finished her meal, Izuku brought her back to the couch and asked her a question. He wanted to know if she would like to be part of his family. Eri's eyes filled with tears as she asked if he truly wanted her to be part of his family. Izuku affirmed his desire, explaining that he had a power that would allow him to mark her as his daughter, enabling him to sense if she was ever in danger. Eri didn't respond verbally but hugged him tightly, sobbing and nodding. Izuku comforted her, rubbing her back and gently rocking back and forth until she calmed down. Once she was settled, he asked where she would like him to place the mark. Eri chose a spot just below her right shoulder on her arm. When the mark appeared, it looked just as he had described. Izuku smiled, declaring that she was now officially his daughter. He then suggested they get her cleaned up and ready for bed. Eri happily agreed, calling him Papa. He sang until he noticed that Eri had fallen back to sleep. Silently, he left the room, only to discover the drone. After reviewing the footage and realizing that nothing significant had been recorded, he edited the video on the way home. He posted it, thinking it was harmless and that people might appreciate an update on Eri's well-being. The next morning, Izuku was in the kitchen cleaning the dishes after feeding himself and Eri when he heard her shout that he was on TV. Confused, he went to the living room and saw the news discussing his latest video. The news reported that the vigilante Azrael's newest video from the previous night had garnered a lot of attention. Initially, it was just a recording of a few crimes he had stopped, but then the footage shifted to the vigilante at home. It appeared he was about to turn off the camera when cries were heard, prompting him to rush toward one of the rooms. The camera followed him into a dimly lit room where a little girl was crying in bed. A conversation unfolded between the vigilante and the child, who spoke of her nightmares, reminding everyone of the horrors she had endured. She then asked him to sing her a song. The audience was treated to a front row seat as the vigilante summoned a piano and began to play and sing for her. After the song ended, he left the room and finally noticed the camera, looking surprised. He mentioned that he would check if it had captured anything important, and if not, he would still post it since it was harmless and people might want to know how she was doing after everything she had been through. The news anchor then addressed Azrael directly, expressing gratitude for showing that the girl was being well taken care of, complimenting his lovely voice and the amazing song, and stating that many would love to hear more. Izuku turned off the TV and turned to Eri, asking her what she thought about him singing more often and posting it. Eri enthusiastically replied that she loved it when he sang. Izuku chuckled softly, hugged her, and assured her that he would do anything she asked, as long as it was safe for her. A day later, at 3 a.m., Izuku was on patrol when he witnessed something that disgusted him. He saw a hero attempting to force himself on a young girl who looked around 15, about his age. Already recording, he rushed toward the hero, grabbing the back of his costume and throwing him against the opposite wall. He confronted the hero, expressing his outrage at the situation. The hero, Captain Celebrity, got up, and his identity became clear. He warned Izuku to leave before things got ugly. Izuku recognized him as a hero who had moved from America, noting that he had left after multiple scandals involving SXL assault claims from several women. Izuku stated that his quirk allowed him to see the wrong someone had done, and he was certain that the allegations against Captain Celebrity were true. He listed the serious accusations against him, including multiple counts of SXL assault and even murder. Captain Celebrity, visibly nervous, began to panic and shouted that there was no proof, claiming it was all baseless rumors. Izuku assured him that when he caught him, he would show the camera all his memories of his crimes to prove his guilt, as well as the past offenses he had escaped punishment for. He emphasized that no matter who someone was or how powerful, they should be held accountable for their actions. To him, Captain Celebrity was not a hero but a disgrace that needed to be stopped. Captain Celebrity, confident in his strength, challenged Izuku, asserting that he would learn why he had been allowed to move to their city despite the lawsuit against him. He believed that strength, money, and fame allowed one to act without consequence. Izuku countered that when corruption became too rampant, people like him emerged. When the system failed, some chose to take matters into their own hands. He prepared to deliver judgment. Captain Celebrity charged forward, attempting to punch Izuku in the stomach. Izuku blocked the attack, grabbed Captain Celebrity's arm, and pulled him forward, driving one of his light daggers through his arm. He released the grip and delivered a powerful kick, sending Captain Celebrity crashing against the wall. Izuku declared that this proved Captain Celebrity was a bad person, noting how his dagger had barely scratched him while it went straight through his arm. His weapons only harmed those who had done wrong, and that was enough evidence of Captain Celebrity's character. Unfazed, Captain Celebrity threatened Izuku, vowing to break his arms and legs and to harm a girl in front of him, even going so far as to mention a little girl Izuku had saved from the Yakuza. Izuku remained silent for a moment before creating a revolver and shooting Captain Celebrity twice in the shoulders. Despite attempting to use his telekinesis to block the bullets, Captain Celebrity was too weak and was hit. Izuku then trapped him in a condensed light cocoon, similar to what he had done with Overhaul, before turning to check on the girl nearby. He expressed his concern, asking if she needed healing after what she had endured. Upon getting a closer look, he was alarmed by her injuries and asked for her name. The girl introduced herself as Himiko Toga and insisted that she was fine and didn't want to be a bother. Izuku reassured her that she was not a bother and proceeded to heal her. He pulled her into a comforting hug, encouraging her to cry if she needed to, as holding in emotions was not healthy. Unbeknownst to him, this was the first hug Toga had received since she was around 5, and the weight of her experiences led her to sob into his chest. Noticing her frail state, Izuku asked if she was homeless, and she nodded against him. He gently rocked her back and forth, rubbing her back until she fell asleep. He then fashioned headphones and a mask to shield her from light and sound, placing her on a temporary bed of light. Turning to the camera, Izuku stated that the victim should always be the top priority, and nothing else mattered until he knew she was safe. He warned viewers that he would now show Captain Celebrity's memories, which would be disturbing and difficult to watch. He proceeded to reveal the memories filled with abuse and violence, then declared that he would change Captain Celebrity's quirk and make him confront the pain he had caused. The changes to Captain Celebrity's quirk were severe. Every time he used his telekinesis, it would painfully crush him until he stopped. He could only lift around 1 pound of weight, and any attempt to strengthen himself would result in tearing his muscles. After inflicting this punishment, Izuku made Captain Celebrity look into his eyes, forcing him to relive the suffering he had caused others. He then shot him in both thighs and delivered a swift kick before calling the police, picking up the sleeping girl, and returning home. The next morning, as Izuku prepared food, A sleepy and confused Toga wandered into the kitchen, asking where she was and who he was. Izuku greeted her warmly, explaining that she was at his home and that he was the vigilante who had helped her the previous night. Fully awake now, Toga questioned why he had brought her there instead of leaving her behind after ensuring her safety. She expressed her concern about being a burden. Izuku reassured her that she was not a burden but someone who needed help. He encouraged her to eat while he went to get his daughter from the living room. As he left, Toga pondered why he was being so kind to her, considering her circumstances and her quirk. She wondered what he meant by daughter, as he appeared to be around her age. Izuku returned with Eri in his arms, introducing her as his adopted daughter. Eri greeted Toga with a smile, and they all sat down to eat. Afterward, Izuku took Eri back to the living room and turned his attention to Toga, offering her a place to stay. He expressed his concern for someone her age living on the streets alone. Toga declined, thanking him for the food and help, insisting she had already bothered him enough. Izuku asked her to share her story, secretly recording it for evidence. Toga revealed that she had been treated like a villain for most of her life due to her quirk, which allowed her to transform into others and use their abilities. Unfortunately, because her quirk required blood, she had been viewed as evil, leading to her being abused and ultimately abandoned by her parents. As she recounted her painful experiences, Toga began to cry, and Izuku comforted her. They remained in that embrace for 10 minutes until she fell asleep. He gently laid her back in the bed where she had slept the night before and returned to the living room, unaware that she had woken up and was listening to him. Izuku expressed his disdain for society, lamenting the treatment of those like Toga, who had been abused and abandoned by everyone. All society sees is her quirk, which Izuku believes has incredible potential. He once told the sludge villain that a strong quirk in the wrong hands can lead to evil, while a so-called villainous quirk in the right hands can be heroic. He vowed to always judge people by their actions, not by things they cannot control. Izuku reflected on how society often creates villains through a negative mindset about quirks. When individuals are told their entire lives that they are villains and face punishment for it, many eventually break and think, if everyone expects them to be a villain, they might as well fulfill that expectation. After shutting off the camera, Izuku turned to his laptop to edit the video from the previous night, unaware that his words had brought Toga to tears. His understanding and acceptance made her trust him more, knowing he wouldn't abandon her because of her quirk, something even her parents had done. The next day, Izuku, Eri, and Toga, who was still a bit cautious around them but improving, were watching TV when breaking news interrupted their program. The news anchor announced that the vigilante Azrael had released videos revealing disturbing information about a hero and the Hero Commission. They warned viewers that the content might be unsuitable for children. Upon hearing this, Izuku led Eri out of the room before returning to watch. The news began to show the video of his encounter with Captain Celebrity, detailing the fight, the hero's past crimes, and his interactions with a victim who was homeless. The video concluded with the news anchor sharing their thoughts. The anchor questioned why the Hero Commission allowed a foreign hero, suspected of multiple serious offenses, to move to their country without proper investigation. They noted that Azrael's memories provided proof of past accusations and raised concerns about the potential for more heroes like him. The segment continued, showing Azrael speaking with the victim, who shared her story of abuse, neglect, and abandonment due to her quirk. After comforting her and ensuring she was safe, the video ended with Azrael explaining his reasons for becoming a vigilante and his disagreement with society. The news anchor reflected on the implications of Azrael's thoughts, suggesting that society often forces individuals down a dark path. If someone is consistently told they are evil and punished for it, they might eventually embrace that identity. Izuku turned off the news and noticed Toga was crying. He approached her, concerned about her feelings. He expressed his regret if she didn't want him to share her story online, but he believed the world needed to see the truth. Toga revealed that she was not upset but rather shocked to see her story on the news. It was comforting to see others considering her experiences, especially since she had contemplated becoming a villain many times. Izuku understood her feelings and asked if she would like him to use his quirk alteration ability to change her quirk, which could only be done 3 times per person. Toga was taken aback, not only by his offer but also by his acceptance of her thoughts about becoming a villain. She questioned why he would still want to help her, recalling how even her parents had abandoned her. Izuku hugged her and reassured her that she was not a burden. He had told Eri the same thing when he first found her. Both of them deserved happiness and a life free from hatred for something beyond their control. After a long embrace, Izuku suggested singing a song he had written with both Toga and Eri in mind. Toga was curious about what he meant by her sounding like Eri, unaware of Eri's struggles due to her lack of access to the news. Izuku shared Eri's story, detailing the hardships she had faced, which left Toga in tears and shocked at what the little girl had endured. She expressed her eagerness to hear the song. Izuku then began to sing and play the song he had composed. Once he finished speaking, he noticed that she was shocked and crying. He expressed his belief that the strongest and bravest people are not necessarily heroes or villains, but those who have endured terrible experiences that left them with both physical and emotional scars. Despite their pain, they continue to move forward. He encouraged her, stating that she was strong and should be proud of that. Her past should not hinder her from becoming the amazing person she could be in the future. He urged her to keep her head held high, explaining that her scars were not reminders of her suffering but proof of her survival and strength. By the end of his heartfelt speech, she was crying yet smiling, repeatedly thanking him. He embraced her to offer comfort. After a while, as she calmed down, he mentioned he had 2 things to ask her. He explained that there were cameras in the room and inquired if she was comfortable with him posting the recording of their earlier conversation. He had asked Eri for her opinion on a request from the news to hear more of his songs, and Eri had agreed. He assured her that if she felt uncomfortable, he would edit out everything but the song and obscure her from the video. However, if she was okay with it, he would post the entire conversation for everyone to hear. He also asked if she wanted him to modify her quirk, emphasizing that it was entirely up to her. She agreed to the recording and asked what changes he would make to her quirk. He explained that if she allowed him to place his hand on her, he could assess the best possible improvements. After a moment of consideration, he shared the changes he envisioned. First, he proposed to remove the bloodlust associated with her quirk by allowing it to be activated through any DNA source, such as blood, skin, or hair. This change would eliminate the need for blood consumption. Second, he suggested activating her dormant power to use the quirks of the individuals she transformed into. Lastly, he mentioned a feature called DNA storage, which would enable her to save the DNA she ingested for later use. However, she would need to train to increase her capacity for saved DNA. The only drawback would be that she would need to practice with any quirks she used to gain mastery over them. He asked if she wanted him to implement these changes, assuring her that once trained, she would become quite powerful. She eagerly agreed to the first change, recognizing its significance, and found the other 2 changes too beneficial to decline. He reassured her that the alteration would be slightly disorienting but painless. Meanwhile, the staff at UA and All Might were reacting to the news. Nizu addressed the group, acknowledging the public's frenzy over Azrael's latest videos and inviting thoughts on the matter. All Might expressed his disgust, recalling his interactions with Captain Celebrity, who had always seemed friendly and never revealed any personal struggles. Eraserhead questioned why past accusations against him had been concealed and why the Hero Commission allowed him to become a hero, especially given that he was not under special scrutiny. Midnight agreed, stating that someone with such a history should have been denied entry immediately, particularly after facing accusations and having a pending court case. Nizu speculated that the commission likely overlooked his past due to his power and potential, allowing him to join despite his troubling history. Present Mike expressed understanding for the public's anger, highlighting that they had just discovered a potential RPST had been made a hero, only for it to be revealed that he had exploited that position to harm others. Nizu acknowledged that it would be challenging for the commission to navigate this situation without making a public statement. Nizu then shifted the conversation to Azrael's interaction with the girl and his views on society, prompting Eraserhead to express his respect for Azrael's willingness to help and save her. Not many people would take in a homeless girl and care for her. It is a truly selfless act of kindness. All Might observed that, despite being a vigilante, the individual was certainly doing good. Mike noted that it was somewhat shameful that a vigilante was displaying more heroic qualities than many of the heroes he had encountered. Vlad King agreed, reflecting on how society often judged those with certain quirks. He recalled his own experiences of being treated like a villain during his youth, but he was fortunate to have a supportive family and trustworthy friends. He couldn't imagine being alone like the girl, especially with a family that mistreated her. Midnight suggested that they should investigate the girl's parents, as they had her name, age, and face, making it easier to locate her family. Even if they couldn't pursue them for abuse, they could certainly hold them accountable for abandonment. Nizu reassured them that a friend in the police force was already looking into the matter. He expressed his growing belief that the vigilante should be recognized as a hero, noting that the more he witnessed the vigilante's actions and care for others, the more convinced he became that they should not imprison him. All Mike concurred, feeling that it would be wrong to lock someone up for actions that were ultimately beneficial to others. The heroes present agreed and continued with their meeting. Meanwhile, Stain found amusement in the situation, believing that the vigilante had proven his point about the existence of false heroes who needed to be scrutinized. He felt that when the system failed, individuals like him emerged to challenge it and take matters into their own hands. He recognized a kindred spirit in the vigilante, feeling that change was necessary. All for one contemplated the situation, realizing that this could work to their advantage. The vigilante was undermining public trust in the heroes, and they could certainly exploit this development. It had been about a week since Izuku's conversation with Toga, and significant developments had taken place. He decided to purchase a smaller apartment building to provide shelter for those in need. He also began investigating what had happened to Slime, though progress was slow. Izuku posted a video of himself talking and singing to Toga, all while continuing his nightly patrols as Azrael. Additionally, he started assisting Toga with her newly enhanced quirk and her mental well-being, drawing on his master's degree in psychology and therapy. The news reacted strongly to his song and the Hero Commission's silence. The latest video released by Azrael captured widespread attention, featuring a heartfelt conversation between him and Toga, along with a new song. The news anchor appeared visibly moved by the speech and song, nearly in tears. The anchor expressed gratitude for the touching speech and praised the song, acknowledging the public's request for more music. In a surprising turn of events, the Hero Commission finally addressed the public. The Commission's president issued an apology for their prolonged silence, explaining that they had been managing the situation. She announced that the former hero, Captain Celebrity, had been stripped of his title and would remain in police custody until his trial. She emphasized that the Commission had no prior knowledge of his crimes and expressed regret for not being aware of the situation. Despite her statements, the president avoided answering crucial questions, particularly regarding how a potential criminal was allowed to become a hero without proper oversight. The news anchor noted the Commission's failure to address these significant concerns. Meanwhile, Izuku had asked Toga to watch over Eri while he checked on the apartment building he had purchased on the outskirts of his property. He had acquired it at a bargain price, as it was considered undesirable due to its distance from the city and proximity to a large forest. After inspecting the building for any undisclosed damages and finding none, he went shopping for essential furniture and groceries, planning to patrol later that night. Later that evening, while on patrol, Izuku noticed someone perched on the edge of a building. He flew up to join them, always accompanied by his drone, which recorded his activities. He approached the individual and asked what they were doing alone at such a late hour. The person, feeling despondent, expressed their frustration, feeling overlooked and abandoned by everyone around them. Izuku responded with compassion, assuring them that he would always extend a helping hand to those in need. He refused to be a bystander and insisted on offering support. The individual, introducing themselves as Mustard, shared their struggles with loneliness, bullying at school, and neglect from their parents. Izuku listened intently, offering comfort and understanding. He empathized with Mustard's pain and reassured them that they did not deserve to suffer because of their quirk. Mustard expressed skepticism about Izuku's intentions, fearing that he would abandon them once he learned about their quirk. Izuku dismissed those concerns, emphasizing that Mustard was a person deserving of help, regardless of their abilities. When Mustard revealed that their quirk allowed them to generate a sleep-inducing gas, Izuku was surprised but reassured them that it was not something to be ashamed of. Mustard, taken aback by Izuku's kindness, asked what they should do instead of contemplating a drastic decision. Izuku suggested that Mustard come with him to the apartment building he had just purchased, a place where he could help individuals like them who needed a safe space. Mustard hesitated, insisting they didn't need a place to stay, but Izuku firmly believed otherwise, convinced that everyone deserves support and a chance to find their way. You basically live alone anyway, so why not at least live with people who would treat you with kindness instead of hatred or indifference? Mustard was surprised and began to like the idea. After some thought, he agreed, and Izuku picked him up and flew him to his old house. Mustard climbed through a window to gather his belongings, and then Izuku took him to his home to meet Eri and Toga. Izuku informed Mustard that there were already 2 people living in his home. He would show him the apartment and help him gather some things for it the next day, but he reassured Mustard that he was always welcome to come back afterward. Mustard, overwhelmed by the kindness, nodded in agreement. Izuku led him inside and noticed that Eri was already in bed, while Toga was in the living room. He introduced them to each other and explained to Toga that Mustard would be moving to the new apartment building. He invited her to join them tomorrow but emphasized that she was always welcome in his and Eri's home. He suggested they all get some sleep since the next day would be busy. The next day, after breakfast and getting everyone ready, Izuku took them to the apartment building. Eri marveled at how big it was, noting that each room felt like a little house. Toga expressed her excitement, asking if she could really live there. Mustard commented on how much it must have cost to buy the place. Izuku explained that he purchased it specifically to provide a home for those in need. He reassured them that the cost was his concern, and they only needed to focus on themselves. He informed Toga that she could choose one of the 8 apartments in the building and claim it as her own, as long as they treated each other kindly and kept the place clean. He reiterated that they were always welcome in his and Eri's home, and this was just to give them their own space. Izuku then heard a knock at the door and excused himself to answer it, expecting the furniture delivery. He opened the door to the DLVRY team, who moved the furniture into their respective rooms. After tipping them, he turned back to the others and explained that they had brought necessities like beds, fridges, and ovens. He encouraged them to look at the rooms and decide what they needed, promising to take them shopping afterward as a welcome gift to the family. Toga and Mustard were surprised by the mention of family. Izuku clarified that he was taking care of them and housing them, which made them his responsibility and, in turn, his family. Toga asked about his real family, and Mustard inquired about his parents. Izuku shared that it was just him and his mother. He had never met anyone else related to him. He revealed that his mother had been killed for helping prove someone guilty of a crime, and since there was no solid proof linking her death to that person, they could not hold him accountable. This tragedy had caused his quirk to evolve, leading him to train as a vigilante. Toga asked if he had sought revenge, while Mustard wondered what had motivated him to become a vigilante. Izuku explained that he had not sought revenge because the man responsible was in prison, and he knew his mother would not want him to stoop to that level. She had dedicated her life to ensuring that guilty individuals were punished properly. He became a vigilante for 2 reasons. First, his quirk allowed him to see the crimes people had committed and recognize when they were lying, making it hard to ignore the corruption in the world. Second, he had discovered that the police officers investigating his mother's murder were themselves corrupt, which made him realize that he needed to take action against those who escaped punishment. After this conversation, Toga and Mustard calmed down and checked their rooms. Eventually, they all went to the mall, where they bought some items, enjoyed dinner, and shared more about themselves. By the end of the day, they returned to the apartment building, with Izuku carrying a sleeping Eri. He wished them good night and hoped they liked their new home. The next day, Mustard and Toga came to visit. As they entered, they heard music playing. Toga realized that Izuku must be singing and suggested they sneak into the room to listen. Unaware of their presence, Izuku began talking to the camera, sharing that he was going to sing a song he wrote about the people he was taking care of. He mentioned that all 3 of them had expressed feelings of being a burden, So he wrote the song to convey a simple message: they were not a burden. After finishing the song, he noticed sobbing and turned around to see Toga and Eri with tear-filled eyes, while Mustard was also in tears. He walked over to them, crouched down, and hugged them, reassuring them that they were not a burden and that they could always talk to him. Some of the lyrics reflect the stories shared about their lives, particularly the line that suggests living with the memories of those who were most needed. This resonates with the experiences of the three friends, each having faced abandonment in different ways. Toga was expelled from her home, Eri was placed in the care of a monstrous figure, and Mustard felt emotionally neglected, as if he never truly existed. The next line speaks to how their difficult family situations led them to shut themselves off emotionally to avoid further pain. This self-protection, however, has made it challenging for them to trust others, which is entirely understandable. The line about drowning in tears emphasizes that it is perfectly acceptable to express emotions. Crying is not a sign of weakness but rather a testament to enduring strength for too long. Another line highlights how they have been silenced since childhood, facing stigma and re-traumatization whenever they attempted to voice their truths. Their quirks, which set them apart, often drew negative attention rather than support, making their struggles seem normal to those around them. Despite not knowing them for long, there is a genuine care for their well-being. They are encouraged to reach out when needed, as they are deserving of love and support. By the end of this heartfelt exchange, all three friends were in tears, embracing him tightly. Once they calmed down, Izuku had a few questions for Mustard. He mentioned recording their rooftop conversation along with the song, asking if he could post it online. If Mustard declined, Izuku would edit the video to end with the song. He also offered to enhance Mustard's quirk, having done the same for Eri and Toga, and finally, he mentioned having written a song about Mustard on the night they met. Mustard, feeling overwhelmed, requested a moment to think. He agreed to hear the song but asked if he could respond to the other questions later, to which Izuku readily agreed. After sharing the song, Izuku reassured Mustard that he was loved, even if it didn't seem like much. Mustard expressed gratitude and consented to post the video. He also wanted to know how Izuku would alter his quirk. Izuku explained that one change would allow Mustard to choose the type of gas he released. If Mustard was comfortable, Izuku would touch his shoulder to share the specifics of the changes. After Mustard agreed, Izuku placed his hand on his shoulder and focused, outlining 3 enhancements to his quirk: the ability to select any gas to release, immunity to any gas whether he produced it or not, and the capability to transform one gas into another without expending energy to create it from scratch. Mustard was astonished by the possibilities. He asked if Izuku could truly implement these changes. Izuku confirmed that while he could, it would be a permanent alteration, and Mustard would likely not want to change his quirk again after this. Mustard agreed to the changes, and they spent some time talking before Izuku prepared food for everyone. They enjoyed a movie together before returning to their apartments. Later, Izuku began editing the videos for posting online. 2 days later, everyone gathered to watch the news, eager to see the reaction to the videos. The vigilante Azrael had uploaded 2 new videos, diverging from his usual fighting content. One featured a conversation with Mustard, showcasing his struggles and Azrael's willingness to help despite the stigma surrounding Mustard's quirk. The news highlighted how Azrael aimed to expose the flaws in society, noting Mustard's surprise at receiving support. Azrael pointed out that Mustard's quirk was not inherently bad, comparing it to that of the hero Midnight, and criticized the unjust hatred directed at him. The next video was more uplifting, featuring Izuku's conversations with Toga, Eri, and Mustard, along with the songs he performed and the changes made to Mustard's quirk. The news anchor remarked on the touching nature of the songs and expressed admiration for Azrael's dedication to helping others, mentioning that he had even purchased a small apartment building to assist those in need. It seems every time he alters a quirk, he goes above and beyond to make it much stronger. Izuku turned off the news and faced Mustard, inquiring about his thoughts on the public's reaction. Mustard expressed his happiness that people were beginning to recognize the societal issues that had caused him suffering due to his quirk. He reflected on how unfairly he had been treated for a quirk that simply made people fall asleep. After using his new quirk, he realized that his old quirk was safe and straightforward, and that the negative treatment he received was unwarranted. He acknowledged that Izuku indeed made any quirk he altered significantly stronger. Izuku affirmed his commitment to his work, stating that he would never do anything halfway. He mentioned that he could only alter a person's quirk 3 times, so it was only fair to give his best effort. He also noted that not all alterations had been beneficial, referencing Overhaul and Captain Celebrity with a hint of mischief. As their conversation continued, the focus shifted to the heroes at UA. Nizu addressed the staff, emphasizing the need to be stricter about teaching people not to discriminate against certain quirks, as this was increasingly evident in the creation of certain villains. Eraser had agreed, pointing out that if someone was treated like a villain their entire life, they might eventually embrace that role. All Might expressed his happiness that Izuku was still helping people and going to great lengths to do so, highlighting the dedication it took to buy an apartment building just to assist more individuals. Present Mike shared his joy in seeing that the kids were being well cared for, noting how Azrael's videos and songs demonstrated his genuine concern for them and conveyed powerful messages. Midnight expressed disbelief at how poorly Izuku had been treated, reflecting on her own experiences and questioning what he meant by an upgraded version of her quirk. Nizu explained that Izuku's alteration allowed him to spread gas without damaging his clothing and that it was effective on both genders, unlike her quirk, which was more effective on men. Vlad King acknowledged Izuku's help but voiced concern over the strength of the altered quirks, noting that they now had top hero potential. Nizu agreed, mentioning that Toga now possessed an extremely versatile quirk with nearly unlimited potential, and Mustard's quirk had also become much stronger. They speculated about Aries' quirk, which seemed to reverse time on organic material, suggesting it had also been enhanced. Eraserhead pointed out the impressive capabilities of Izuku's group, which included a quirk-copying spy, a person who could create and breathe any gas, a child who could reverse time, and a vigilante with an incredibly versatile quirk. Nizu noted the positive side. 2 of those individuals could have become villains, and the videos provided valuable information to locate Azrael. They had learned that he lived in a secluded wooded area, had a child with him, and now had Toga and Mustard on his property. He had also recently purchased an apartment building likely near his residence. Meanwhile, All for One expressed his desire for the altered quirks, considering capturing Izuku to force him to enhance them further. Stain observed that with each post, Izuku proved himself to be a genuine hero. 3 days later, in a run-down part of the city, Izuku approached a door and knocked. When it opened, he was greeted by Slime, who asked who he was and what he wanted. Izuku responded, noting that it wasn't the best way to greet a friend and explained that he had come to check on him after the quirk alteration. Slime was surprised to see Azrael and wondered how he had found him. Izuku explained that he wanted to see how Slime was doing and had an offer for him. After entering the apartment, which was quite bare and run down, Izuku shared his offer. He had saved a little girl and 2 teens who had also been mistreated due to their quirks and had bought a small apartment building with 8 units. He invited Slime to move into one of the rooms, with the only rule being to be civil to the other residents and avoid causing damage. Slime appreciated the offer but hesitated, not wanting to impose further. Izuku reassured him, asking if he had seen the news about his recent videos. Slime admitted he had and expressed surprise at Izuku's singing talent. Izuku explained that those songs were his response to Slime's concerns, emphasizing that no one in need of help was a bother to him. Izuku offered Slime a place where he could be with others who had been wronged because of their quirks or needed help, just like him. Slime paused, glancing around his worn-down apartment, and expressed his willingness to accept the offer. Izuku helped him pack the few belongings he wanted to bring and guided him to the new apartment building. There, he introduced Slime to Toga and Mustard. Afterward, he mentioned that he needed to check on Eri, who had been under Toga's watch. Before leaving, he asked Toga and Mustard to answer any questions Slime might have and assured Slime that he would help him gather some items for his room soon. Once Izuku departed, Toga inquired about Slime's story. He recounted his encounter with Azrael and the events that followed. Toga nodded in understanding, recognizing that it was typical of Azrael's character. Slime then asked Toga and Mustard about their experiences, having seen their stories in the news but wanting to hear their perspectives. As they shared their tales, a sense of kinship began to form among them, stemming from their shared suffering. Mustard and Toga were surprised by how similar Slime's story was to their own, realizing how close they had come to becoming villains themselves. Just then, Izuku returned and noticed their contemplative expressions. He gently reminded them of the harsh realities they faced, acknowledging how close they had been to the edge. He emphasized that being labeled a villain and enduring constant punishment could lead anyone to snap. Izuku reassured them that they were not at fault for being unable to endure endless hatred for something they did not choose. He explained that while some villains were indeed monstrous, many were simply broken individuals who had no support. This understanding was one of the reasons he became a vigilante. He wanted to see them as people, not just villains defined by their quirks. He expressed his commitment to this cause, even though it was challenging given the public's perception. To lighten the mood, he offered to prepare a meal for Slime while Eri took a nap, welcoming him into their unconventional family. Meanwhile, at UA, Nizu announced a breakthrough in their investigation. He had discovered a recently purchased apartment building near woodland areas, close to a private property owned by the same individual. Security footage had shown both Mustard and Toga in the vicinity, leading him to believe he had located Azrael. Present Mike suggested they simply arrest Azrael on his property, but Nizu explained that they would need a warrant to enter private property. Just seeing Toga and Mustard nearby was insufficient grounds for such a warrant. Eraserhead added that obtaining a warrant could make Azrael view them as enemies, which would undermine their goal of collaboration and could provoke the public. All Might agreed, pointing out that no one else on Azrael's property had broken the law and that they were victims. Arresting the first person to show them kindness could push them toward villainy. Nizu acknowledged this concern, recognizing that a group of heroes arresting the one person willing to help could foster resentment. Midnight noted the complexity of the situation, emphasizing that if they succeeded, they could gain a group of individuals with immense potential for good. Their experiences outside the idealized view of hero society could empower them to make a difference, unlike those who dismissed them as unworthy of attention. Vlad King added that recruiting more heroes with villainous quirks could help break the stigma, as it had been difficult to find individuals willing to help after their mistreatment. Nizu concurred with the group, understanding that having Azrael as a hero would greatly benefit their efforts. With any of his powers, he could be a great hero, but when combined, he might become one of the greatest heroes out there. Eraserhead acknowledged that the list of things he could do was extensive. He could help provide proof of guilt or innocence by making someone tell the truth or showing their memories. He could heal people from injuries that no one else could heal, much like All Might. His strength and intelligence were proven during his fight with All Might. Additionally, he could assist those struggling with their quirks by altering them. A couple of years ago, Eraserhead met someone with a quirk called Painful Healing, which granted him two abilities: strong regeneration and the capacity to take on the injuries of others, healing them in the process. However, the downside was that while healing, he would experience 5 times the pain of the injury he absorbed. If his quirk could be modified, he could become an incredible healer. Nizu agreed about the potential good he could do. If they could get him to work with them, it would be wise to contact that man to see if his quirk could be changed. They needed to plan how to reach Azrael. Nizu suggested that one of them should watch the property, and when they saw him leave for work as Azrael, All Might should be the one to approach him, equipped with a camera and earpiece for communication. All Might questioned why he was chosen for this task, expressing his willingness but wanting to understand the reasoning. Nizu explained that Azrael already had a favorable view of All Might and had even shown willingness to heal him, making it likely that he would listen. All Might acknowledged that while he was willing to try, Azrael seemed the type to leave mid-conversation if he sensed someone in need of help. Nizu countered that as a hero, All Might would also have to leave if someone required assistance, which was a fair point. Helping Azrael while he worked might build trust. They decided to set up cameras and drones around the property to monitor movements. Present Mike noted that this would also provide a better view of how Toga and Mustard were being treated. He believed Azrael was treating them well, but it was their responsibility to ensure their well-being. Nizu agreed and urged them to get to work. It had been 4 days since Slime moved in with the others, and he felt more welcome than ever. Reflecting on everything that had happened, he recalled one moment of anger during his meeting with Eri. In a flashback, Izuku entered the apartment's common area with Eri in his arms, heading towards Slime's room. After knocking on the door, Slime greeted him, curious about who he was carrying. He recognized Eri from the news, recalling a video where he sang her to sleep. Izuku introduced Eri as his adopted daughter, whom he had rescued from a monster. After some interaction, Eri fell asleep, prompting Slime to ask Izuku about his statement regarding saving her from a monster. Izuku shared Eri's full story, detailing the abuse she had suffered, the times she had nearly died, and the mental torment she endured being blamed for the deaths caused by Overhaul. By the end of the story, Slime appeared ready to confront someone. He expressed disbelief at how anyone could inflict such harm on a child, questioning how someone could lack a heart and feel no guilt. Izuku explained that he had posted a video of his fight with the Yakuza group, showcasing how his holy light weapons dealt more damage to evil individuals. He noted that during his fight with All Might he could barely draw blood, but the same bullets had pierced through Overhaul. Slime decided to watch some of the more popular videos Izuku had uploaded as Azrael. The flashback ended, and Izuku was now out doing his vigilante work when All Might interrupted him. Izuku expressed happiness at seeing All Might doing well and noted that reminding him of his roots had inspired him to help the quirkless. All Might acknowledged that it was thanks to Izuku's healing that he was in good shape and that he had looked into ways to assist others after being reminded of his origins. Izuku had kept track of All Might's progress and was pleased with the outcome. All Might had donated significantly to charities supporting the quirkless and had become more vocal about his support, which had encouraged more quirkless individuals to speak out about their unfair treatment. Izuku suggested that sharing his story of being a late bloomer could further help the quirkless, as it might foster understanding and kindness from others. All Might appreciated Izuku's encouragement but questioned why people would believe that the next All Might could become a villain. Izuku explained that when someone is mistreated throughout their life, they might retaliate if pushed too far. Most late bloomers possess very strong quirks, and the stronger the quirk, the longer it may take to manifest. Imagine someone who has faced abuse and mistreatment throughout their life suddenly gaining a powerful quirk. It is likely that such a person would lash out with that newfound ability. This raises the possibility that the next symbol of peace could become a villain. Additionally, it is often overlooked that one does not need a quirk to be dangerous. Intelligence alone can lead to devastating outcomes. A person can create a bomb or release poisonous gas, causing harm regardless of their abilities. Those who have been abused may reach a breaking point and lash out in ways that can endanger many. All Might and the heroes watching through the camera were taken aback, realizing the truth in these words. Nizu suggested that All Might ask if Azrael would be willing to collaborate with the heroes. All Might inquired whether Azrael would consider working with them. Izuku expressed doubt, stating that he would always stand up for those who have been wronged. He reflected on the sludge villain, acknowledging that he could not view him as evil after understanding the circumstances that led him to villainy. Abandoned by his family due to his appearance after his quirk awakened, he faced mistreatment on the streets. With no one willing to help him, he was left with two choices: to steal or to starve. Izuku refused to label such a broken individual as a villain and believed that simply beating them and imprisoning them would only deepen their resentment towards heroes and society. He questioned why no one ever explored the reasons behind a person's descent into villainy, suggesting that many could become remarkable individuals if offered support. All Might and the other heroes fell silent once more, recognizing the validity of his perspective. None had ever considered the underlying reasons for someone's transformation into a villain. Before they could respond, Azrael continued. He emphasized that he would always hold individuals accountable for their wrongdoings, regardless of their status as heroes. He believed that heroes who broke the law should face even harsher consequences, as they were the ones tasked with upholding it. All Might acknowledged his agreement but struggled to understand why this would prevent Azrael from working with them. Izuku explained that, ultimately, the heroes worked for the Hero Commission, the same organization that had concealed Captain Celebrity's misdeeds. This was not the only dark secret they harbored. He pointed out that they often employed hidden agents like Lady Nagata and Hawks, and he was prepared to share their stories. Lady Nagata was once a celebrated hero known for her exceptional aim, even surpassing Snipe. However, the Hero Commission manipulated her into becoming an assassin. By the time she realized the true nature of her role, she found herself trapped. They convinced her that their targets were threats to society, but when she discovered that her next target was merely a rival for power within the commission, she sought to confront the commission president. On her way, she encountered young fans but felt unworthy to interact with them, leading to a breaking point. After learning that many of her targets were innocent, she ultimately took the commission president's life before allowing herself to be captured. Following her arrest, no one investigated her motives. She was simply imprisoned in Tartarus. Hawk's story was different yet equally tragic. Kigo Takami was born on the island of Kyushu, Fukuoka, conceived after his mother, Tomi, sheltered his father following a crime. Kigo endured a traumatic and abusive upbringing, confined to his home to prevent him from revealing his father's actions. One day, after persistent requests, his mother took him outside and bought him an Endeavor doll. Isolated from the world, he grew up believing heroes were fictional characters. One day, feeling a tingling in his feathers, Kigo ventured into the city, sensing something was amiss, but returned home when he found nothing. His father, suspecting him of betrayal, punished him harshly, expressing resentment for his existence. Kigo endured this abuse, suppressing his emotions to avoid becoming like his parents. Shortly thereafter, his father was apprehended by Endeavor. This revelation shocked Kigo, as he had always viewed heroes as mere fantasy. The hero who saved him from his abusive life was the very man whose plushie he cherished. Fearing repercussions for harboring a fugitive, Kigo and his mother fled their home. With Tomi lacking skills to support them, they found themselves living on the streets. When Kigo suggested seeking help from the police, Tomi dismissed the idea, questioning his worth and purpose. This statement ignited determination within Kigo to prove himself. He bravely intervened in a high-speed car accident, saving lives. The public was astonished to learn that the hero was a child, leading the Hero Public Safety Commission to approach him. After hearing his story, they offered compensation and protection to him and his mother, provided they abandoned the Takami name. Following this incident, the commission separated Kigo from his mother and began training him as a hero. It was said that the commission instilled interpersonal skills in him from a young age, enabling him to master the art of deception and infiltration. The commission required him to abandon his real name and undergo years of rigorous training, which he accepted in his quest to become a hero like his idol, Endeavor. Kigo soon established his own hero agency around the age of by the latter half of that same year. He managed to reach Japan's top 10 pro hero rankings before turning 20, making him the youngest to achieve this milestone. 4 years later, Kigo climbed to the number 3 pro hero rank, just behind All Might and Endeavor, without even trying. Unlike many heroes, Kigo was not driven by a desire to be the strongest or to emulate All Might. Instead, he admired Endeavor. He felt he had been sold to the commission because he wanted to prove he was not useless. He believed he would never be a hero under such a corrupt system. He would rather harm himself than work for people like them, especially since they had never acknowledged the incidents involving Lady Nagata or commented on Captain Celebrity. They skillfully dodged questions and seemed accustomed to doing so. All Might and nearly everyone present were taken aback, except for Nizu, who had suspected something like this had occurred. He realized that while Kigo might not become a hero, they could still establish a working relationship. Before he could voice his thoughts, a commotion caught his attention from the camera feed. Just as Izuku finished speaking, he heard a fight occurring a few streets away. He apologized to All Might before rushing off to the scene. Upon arrival, he saw a scarred young adult, perhaps just turning 20, and an injured man. Instead of capturing the flaming scarred man, Izuku apprehended the injured man and addressed him directly. He recognized the injured man as the new vigilante, Dabi, and urged him to extinguish his quirk, explaining that it was causing him harm. He assured Dabi that he had already immobilized the other individual. All Might arrived just in time to hear Izuku's words. He was confused and questioned why Izuku referred to the victim as a creature and why he had restrained him. Izuku expressed his frustration with how heroes operated, emphasizing that they often jumped to conclusions without understanding the full context. He explained that anyone who would harm a child had crossed a line and did not deserve to be seen as human. Izuku quickly moved in front of the man, making him confront the pain he had inflicted on others. He created a dagger and a revolver, using them to deliver a non-lethal but impactful lesson. Afterward, he displayed the man's memories to All Might and the vigilante as proof of his crimes. Izuku insisted that All Might should always seek the complete story before determining guilt. He then invited Dabi to accompany him, expressing his concern for Dabi's well-being and his desire to address the actions of the number 2 hero, Endeavor. He hinted that Dabi's memories would reveal troubling truths about Endeavor's family. Dabi agreed to join Izuku, stating he had questions of his own. Izuku reassured him that he could leave at any time and could stay as long as he did not harm anyone else present. All Might was shocked to learn of these revelations and questioned why such matters had never made the news. Izuku attributed this to the Commission's willingness to cover up the misdeeds of their heroes, which he found utterly repugnant. He informed All Might and Nizu that he would be posting a video detailing the events, leaving the matter of the creature in All Might's hands. He bid them farewell, emphasizing that this situation was no different from the norm. After returning home with Dabi, they heard gentle crying. Izuku apologized to Dabi before rushing toward the sound, with Dabi following to see how Azrael would react. Upon entering the room, Izuku found Eri and asked if she had another nightmare. She nodded and hugged him tightly, prompting Izuku to embrace her and comfort her by rubbing her back. He offered to play the recording of the song he had sung for her, and Eri nodded in agreement. Izuku played the video, telling her he would be in the living room if she needed anything. Once he noticed that she was dozing off, he left quietly and saw Dabi in the doorway when he entered the living room. Izuku apologized to Dabi, explaining that Eri had a lot of trouble with nightmares even after he had saved her. Dabi, curious, asked what Overhaul had done to her, admitting he had not seen most of Izuku's videos. Izuku then shared Eri's entire story, and Dabi's expression shifted to one of disgust and anger. After taking a deep breath, he acknowledged the gravity of Eri's experiences, recognizing that she had endured a living nightmare at such a young age. He expressed his relief that she was with someone who genuinely cared for her. Izuku affirmed his commitment to Eri, stating that he had asked her to join his family knowing he would do anything to ensure her safety. Dabi, though he didn't show it, was impressed by the determination in Izuku's eyes. As they discussed Dabi's past, Izuku noted that he could see Dabi had started out as a vigilante, and he asked if Dabi would be willing to share his story. Dabi replied that he would prefer not to until he trusted Izuku. Understanding this, Izuku offered Dabi a place to stay in his apartment building while they planned their attack on the number 2 hero. He reassured Dabi that he could choose any apartment and could stay as long as he didn't harm or provoke the other residents, who had all faced some form of abuse due to their quirks. Izuku had promised them safety and support, treating them like family. Dabi was genuinely surprised by the offer and the knowledge that the other residents had also experienced hardship. He inquired about who lived there and what their stories were. Izuku shared the stories of Mustard, Toga, and Slime, emphasizing his desire for them to feel welcomed and valued for the first time in their lives. Dabi expressed his respect for Izuku's efforts to help them and agreed to take an apartment. Izuku then planned to check on Eri before taking Dabi to the apartment building, where he could choose his new home. They agreed to begin planning their strategy against Endeavor the following day when they were well rested. The next day, Izuku, accompanied by Eri, headed to the apartment building for further discussions. He prepared Eri for the new resident, explaining that while Dabi might look intimidating, he was just like everyone else and needed help. Eri nodded, reassured by her father's words, confident that he would keep her safe. Once they entered the building, Eri ran to greet the other 3 residents, having formed a bond of trust with them. After hearing Eri's story and interacting with her, they had become protective of her, recognizing her kindness. Even Slime, who had once been a villain, felt understood by her. When Eri expressed that she knew about his past and empathized with him, it moved Slime deeply, as he had never encountered such acceptance before. This connection made him feel like a big brother to her, a role Izuku appreciated, knowing that positive relationships were essential for everyone in the apartment. Izuku stopped by to talk with the new resident, but when he finished, the others were surprised, having not noticed anyone else since waking up. A sense of unease washed over Izuku, prompting him to rush upstairs to the room Dabi had chosen. Upon reaching the door, he heard muffled sobs, as if someone was struggling to contain their emotions. Izuku entered the room to find Dabi curled up on the bed. Dabi attempted to hide his tears and put on a brave face, but Izuku simply hugged him. Unbeknownst to them, the other residents had followed and were listening from the hallway, with Toga even recording the moment. Izuku reassured Dabi that he didn't need to hide his tears, explaining that crying was a sign of strength, not weakness. He encouraged Dabi to express his emotions rather than bottle them up, which could lead to more pain. Dabi remained silent, still trying to control his feelings. Recognizing that music had helped others before, Izuku decided to play a song to convey his message. He stood up, found a piano, and began to play and sing, hoping to reach Dabi's heart through the power of music. By the end of the song, Dabi could no longer contain his emotions and began to sob. Izuku approached him and offered a comforting hug. As he held Dabi, he noticed that Dabi was crying both tears and blood. Quickly, Izuku stood up and began to condense holy energy in front of him. Dabi was initially shocked by this sudden action, but as he observed his scars slowly healing, his astonishment grew. By the end of the process, he looked rejuvenated and no longer felt the pain his scars had caused him. However, the pain from crying had been one of the few things helping him confront his emotions, and he found himself crying even more. Izuku then sat beside him on the bed and gently rubbed his back. After a while, Dabi fell asleep. Izuku quietly left the room and saw everyone waiting just outside the doorway. He shushed them and motioned for them to follow him downstairs, where he explained his actions. He expressed his apologies for running off, stating that he had sensed Dabi might need help. He acknowledged that Dabi might try to hide his feelings, but Izuku recognized the signs of sadness and loneliness in his eyes. Mustard inquired about Dabi's story, and Izuku replied that it was not his place to share until Dabi felt comfortable. However, he did mention that Dabi and his family had suffered abuse at the hands of the number 2 hero, Endeavor. Through his interactions with Dabi, Izuku had learned about several crimes that Endeavor had committed, which the Hero Commission had covered up to protect their image. Everyone was taken aback by the revelation that even the number 2 hero could be involved in such wrongdoing. Izuku shook his head, affirming that this was precisely why he refused to become a hero. He did not want to be another tool for a corrupt system. He then offered to prepare something to eat while they waited for Dabi to wake up so they could have a discussion. Meanwhile, at the apartment, the heroes were convening to discuss the events of the previous night. All Might and the UA staff were present. Niza began the meeting by inviting questions. All Might asked if the information about Hawks and Lady Nagant was true and whether they had investigated Endeavor. The other heroes nodded in agreement, recognizing the importance of these inquiries. Niza revealed that he had already harbored suspicions about the commission, and hearing someone else confirm his thoughts had motivated him to dig deeper. He confirmed that, based on the limited information that had not been deleted or covered up, the claims about the commission were true. Regarding Endeavor, he stated that it appeared his oldest child was suspected to be dead, and his wife had injured their youngest child before being placed in a mental hospital for around 7 years, a suspiciously long time. All Might noted that this likely meant Endeavor had told the truth about the commission covering for him, as the news would have uncovered such information by now otherwise. Eraserhead remarked that the more he learned about the commission, the more he understood why Azrael refused to associate with them. Though the other heroes did not voice it, they agreed that the commission was becoming a significant issue they would have to confront, especially if Azrael had indeed posted the video of his conversation with All Might, as he often did. Nizu then shared his suspicion that Dabi could be Endeavor's oldest child. Present Might questioned how Dabi could be alive if he was suspected to be dead. Nizu clarified that suspected meant there had never been a body found, and a note from when Dabi went to the quirk doctor indicated that his flames would turn blue around PBR2I. It also mentioned that while his quirk was stronger than Endeavor's, His body was more resistant to cold, like his mother's, which could explain the burn scars on Dabi. Azrael had also mentioned that Endeavor had harmed Dabi and his family, which aligned with the information they had. Eraser had reflected that while it was good Dabi was not dead, it sadly reinforced what Azrael had been saying about society creating villains. He warned that people would eventually grow tired of waiting for change and take matters into their own hands. This meant that Azrael had one more ally who was a victim of society's failures. The question arose about what to do with Endeavor. All Might acknowledged that Endeavor deserved punishment, but he was uncertain if the Commission would allow it. If Endeavor were punished now, it would expose the Commission's cover-up, and the public would demand answers, especially after the recent celebrity scandal that had left many dissatisfied. Nizu pointed out that they were in a difficult situation, but reminded them of something important. When Azrael had asked Dabi to join him, he had stated that he could not leave Endeavor unpunished. Therefore, while they could not arrest Endeavor yet, once Azrael revealed Endeavor's dark secrets, they would be free to act, as even the Commission would not be able to intervene without exposing their corruption. All Might expressed his discomfort with the idea of needing a vigilante to serve justice before they could take action. He felt it highlighted their role as mere figureheads, failing to address the root causes of villainy. The heroes shared a moment of silence, contemplating their responsibilities. Back at the apartment, Izuku had just finished preparing breakfast and was serving everyone their food when Dabi entered the room. Izuku expressed his hope that Dabi was feeling a bit better. Dabi felt a bit embarrassed about the previous events but was also grateful. He sat down and expressed that he was feeling better, thanking Izuku for healing him. Izuku reassured him that it was fine and that he was always willing to listen or lend a shoulder to those in need. He encouraged everyone to eat before the food got cold, suggesting they could talk afterward. Eri asked if she could have some apple slices too, and Izuku happily agreed. He smiled at her as he cut up the apple and handed it to her, while everyone watched the interaction. Dabi complimented Izuku on his cooking and noted how much he cared for Eri, recognizing him as a good parent. Izuku appreciated the compliment and shared that he tried his best to be a good parental figure, even if he wasn't sure he was doing everything right. As Izuku fed Eri, everyone chuckled at the scene. Toga commented that Izuku was doing just fine and wished her own family was as loving. Mustard agreed, and sensing the mood shift, Izuku spoke up. He reminded them that while their families might have failed them, friends could become the family they chose to care for. Everyone was touched by his words, but Dabi soon inquired about Izuku's maturity at such a young age. Izuku explained that he had always had a high IQ, which was enhanced by his quirk, and that he had been raising himself for years. He had witnessed many terrible things, which had forced him to mature quickly. After finishing their food, they moved to the living room. Izuku decided to ask if he could post everything from the previous night online and if Dabi would be willing to share his story. Dabi agreed, noting that Izuku had proven he was not just another corrupt person hiding behind a mask. Toga mentioned that she had recorded the conversation in Dabi's room and the song Izuku had sung. Dabi was taken aback by this revelation, and Izuku pointed out that recording a private conversation, especially during a moment of distress, was a breach of privacy. Toga apologized, explaining that she had ensured Dabi wasn't in the video and had a feeling Izuku would end up singing. Izuku acknowledged Toga's intent to keep Dabi's privacy as much as possible and suggested that if Dabi was uncomfortable with the video being posted, they could edit it to remove everything but the song. Dabi, however, expressed that he liked the song and believed the message could help someone else. Izuku praised Dabi for being a good person and asked if he could record his story while he edited the videos. Dabi agreed but set two conditions. The video could only be shown after they took down Endeavor, and he wanted to hear the new song Izuku had thought of, as he had enjoyed the previous ones. Izuku readily agreed to Dabi's conditions and offered to record himself altering Endeavor's quirk and even suggested altering Dabi's quirk to prevent it from causing him pain. Dabi loved the idea and was open to the alteration. As Dabi began to share his story, he revealed several painful truths. He and his brother Shoto had been forced to train relentlessly since they were 4 years old. Endeavor had engaged in an illegal quirk marriage and neglected his other children, focusing solely on Dabi's powerful fire quirk. He had abused his wife and made his children fight him, disregarding their pain. Dabi had tried to shoulder more responsibility for Shoto, but this only led to harsher training. By the end of his story, Dabi was slightly teary-eyed. Izuku reminded him that it was okay to cry and that anyone with a heart would agree he had been strong for too long. Dabi finally let his emotions flow, and after a while, he calmed down. Izuku then focused on how he could change Dabi's quirk. He placed his hand on Dabi's shoulder and began to consider the potential changes. He listed some amazing possibilities, starting with making Dabi immune to fire and allowing him to turn into fire, becoming intangible and gaining better control over his flames. Dabi listened intently, intrigued by the possibilities. The ability to change the temperature of fire allows for it to become hotter, but it also enables the user to cool it down to nearly freezing, condensing moisture in the air to create ice. The final change presents two options: the ability to heal by absorbing sources of fire, the ability to consume fire and ice, which not only aids in healing but also restores stamina and temporarily strengthens the body and quirk. However, the downside is that one cannot absorb or consume their own fire or ice produced by their quirk. Dabi was taken aback by the possibilities and remarked that with these changes, he would become incredibly powerful. He decided to choose the second option, believing the benefits were more extensive. Izuku agreed, noting that he would have made the same choice if it were his decision, although some might find the idea of consuming elements unusual. After Izuku changed his quirk, Dabi expressed how strong he felt. He then inquired if Izuku had altered his own quirk. Izuku was surprised he hadn't considered that possibility and acknowledged his oversight. He planned to explore changes after dealing with Endeavor, realizing he would need to train to adapt to any modifications. He reassured Dabi that he had nothing to worry about since Dabi was now immune to fire, leaving Endeavor at a significant disadvantage. Izuku stopped recording their conversation, prompting Dabi to remind him that he owed him a song. Izuku hesitated but agreed, mentioning that the idea for the song had come to him while reflecting on Dabi's story. He asked for permission to record it, to which Dabi consented. Izuku then began to play and sing. Izuku reflected on the strength of those who had endured suffering and hardship yet continued to push forward. He acknowledged Dabi as one of the strongest individuals, not only for his resilience but also for his determination to do good despite his past. Izuku encouraged Dabi to take pride in who he was, emphasizing that pain did not define him. Rather, it was a testament to his strength. As emotions ran high, Dabi found himself moved to tears. The focus soon shifted to planning their strategy against Endeavor. Izuku decided not to release any recordings until they had dealt with Endeavor, believing it would make their surprise attack more effective. He shared his thoughts on the battle, explaining that Endeavor, like many heroes, followed a predictable patrol route. They planned to wait until late at night when the streets were quiet, allowing them to confront him without endangering the public. Dabi agreed, recognizing the importance of keeping the fight away from innocent bystanders, knowing Endeavor's disregard for collateral damage. Izuku expressed his eagerness to reveal Endeavor's memories to the public, believing it would expose the Commission's cover-up of the crimes committed by powerful heroes. He anticipated that this revelation would serve as undeniable proof of their corruption. Toga raised a concern about the potential chaos that could ensue, while Mustard and Slime discussed the implications of such actions. Slime pointed out that the Commission might view Izuku as an enemy if they retained any of their power. Izuku acknowledged the risks but remained resolute. He was prepared to confront the Commission directly, intending to reveal their wrongdoings. He believed that if the individuals in power were innocent, nothing would happen. However, if they had caused harm, they would experience the pain they had inflicted on others. With a determined gaze, Izuku's voice was steady as he contemplated their next steps. Meanwhile, Endeavor grappled with his own frustrations, questioning why he couldn't surpass All Might in the hero rankings, convinced that he was superior to the hero he deemed a laughing clown. The masterpiece was destined to fulfill its purpose. As he muttered to himself, a sudden instinct urged him to move. He leaped aside just in time to narrowly avoid a throwing knife. Endeavor demanded to know the villain's identity, proclaiming that bravery was required to confront him and warning of the consequences that awaited. From the shadows came the sound of clapping, followed by Stain emerging into view. He commended Endeavor for dodging the knife but declared his intent to take him down like the beast. He believed him to be a failure as both a hero and a father. Endeavor felt a surge of anger and shock as Stain continued, revealing his knowledge of Endeavor's past actions toward his family. Stain explained that while he lacked the means to document his battles like Azrael, he always researched his targets before attacking. He aimed to eliminate false heroes, not harm the few genuine ones, countering the perception that he was a mindless killer. Endeavor dismissed Stain's knowledge, asserting that no one would believe him. He reignited the battle, unleashing a blast of flames towards Stain, who evaded the attack and circled Endeavor like a predator. As Endeavor prepared for another strike, Stain threw knives as a distraction, forcing Endeavor to dodge. In that moment, Stain lunged, swinging his sword. Endeavor managed to lean aside just in time, narrowly avoiding the blade. Stain then executed a spinning kick that not only disoriented Endeavor but also created distance between them. Once they were apart, Endeavor expressed his frustration, claiming that the attack had hurt and vowing to retaliate. Flames began to gather in his hand as he unleashed a powerful attack. Stain, initially agile in evading Endeavor's strikes, was caught off guard when one of the flames struck him, sending him hurtling toward Endeavor, who caught him by the neck. Endeavor contemplated his next move, considering taking Stain to the police but worried about the secrets he might reveal. He decided to let the commission take Stain, sacrificing some of his own glory in the process. Stain's fury was palpable. He despised the commission as much as he did fake heroes. They had forced him into vigilantism by covering up numerous crimes committed by heroes and painting him as the villain. In a sudden burst of energy, Stain kicked Endeavor in the chest, causing him to release his grip and leap back while unleashing more flames, unintentionally burning the blood on Stain's shoe. Endeavor was furious, exclaiming about the damage to his cooling suit. Stain, feeling the sting of his burns, decided to retreat temporarily. He threw more knives at Endeavor as a distraction while he attempted to escape. Endeavor was determined not to let him go, using a special move to incinerate the daggers while also striking Stain. He taunted Stain, hoping the attack had caused him significant pain. As the dust settled, Endeavor was shocked to see two figures standing before Stain. One was the vigilante Azrael, and the other was someone he never expected. Izuku stepped forward, explaining that he couldn't allow Endeavor to kill Stain. Although he didn't condone killing, he respected Stain's determination to fight for change. Endeavor, though he heard Izuku, was too focused on the other figure to respond. Izuku suggested that Dabi take on Endeavor, offering to assist when necessary or after he finished talking and healing Stain. Dabi grinned, eager for the challenge, and expressed gratitude for the opportunity to fight Endeavor, knowing that Izuku didn't need his help. Izuku acknowledged that while he could handle the fight alone, he appreciated the offer of assistance. He emphasized the importance of being prepared and not underestimating their enemy. He encouraged Dabi to show Endeavor the strength he possessed. With a nod and a smile, Dabi charged toward Endeavor, ready to engage in battle. Meanwhile, Izuku and Stain began their conversation, with Stain expressing gratitude for Azrael's unexpected support and acknowledging that he had been right about him all along. Izuku explained that their encounter was coincidental, revealing that the man fighting Endeavor was supposedly his deceased son, whom he had met the previous day while confronting a dangerous individual. He became a vigilante after witnessing the turmoil his father caused their family. There was no way he could turn a blind eye after discovering the truth about his actions. They had planned to confront him that night, but upon arrival, they witnessed an attack on him and decided to wait and see if assistance was needed before stepping in. As Izuku healed him, he examined the crimes committed and the motivations behind them. He froze, momentarily speechless, as he noticed tears falling from Stain's hood. Stain appeared distressed and questioned what was wrong. Izuku, feeling empathy, expressed sorrow for Stain's suffering and suggested that after the fight, he should join him and Dabi at his place to talk and receive help. Stain, taken aback and confused, recalled his ability to perceive the backstories of people's crimes. He believed he had glimpsed Izuku's past. Stain agreed to accompany them, expressing a desire to meet the individuals featured in Izuku's videos, whom he believed to be good people. Izuku was surprised that Stain felt remorse for Izuku witnessing his past, and he embraced him, reassuring him that he should prioritize his own well-being. He emphasized that Stain was the victim and deserved an apology, not the other way around. Izuku then mentioned he would check on Dabi and asked if Stain would like to join, as he should be able to move now. Stain accepted, eager not only to witness Dabi's confrontation but also to gather information he had missed during his investigation. Izuku remarked that Dabi likely deserved a long prison sentence for the collateral damage and loss of life he had caused while posing as a hero, not to mention other crimes related to his family. Stain felt disgusted, questioning why the deaths attributed to Dabi were not widely known. He realized it was due to the corrupt commission protecting him. Izuku nodded in agreement, and they proceeded toward the ongoing fight. Meanwhile, Dabi had just thrown Endeavor away from Izuku and Stain, which seemed to rouse Endeavor from his shock. As he regained his composure, he expressed disbelief, questioning how Dabi could be alive. Dabi, with a chuckle, pointed out that Endeavor had dismissed him as dead without investigating how one of his failed creations had truly perished. He noted that a forest fire would unlikely leave no remains behind. Endeavor was taken aback, realizing that only a few people knew such details, which added credibility to Dabi's identity. He reluctantly acknowledged Dabi as Toya but questioned how he had healed and why he was fighting him. Dabi, slightly disappointed, sighed loudly and pointed out that it was not unbelievable for him to be healed, especially with someone capable of healing severe injuries and altering quirks by his side. He expressed his desire for revenge against Endeavor, who had made his life miserable. Endeavor, feeling a mix of anger and shock, retorted that even if Dabi's quirk was fixed and he was healed, he was still a failure and now a villain for working with someone he deemed a false angel. At that moment, Izuku and Stain arrived and overheard the exchange. Izuku, filled with emotion, confronted Endeavor, emphasizing that he had no right to label anyone a villain or failure. He pointed out Endeavor's high casualty numbers among both villains and civilians and highlighted the disarray within his own family. Once Izuku calmed down, he informed Dabi that he would not interfere in the fight but would step in if it took too long, as they needed to avoid drawing attention, even in the abandoned part of the city. He encouraged Dabi to show Endeavor what he was capable of. Dabi smiled and nodded at Izuku's support, but as he turned back to face Endeavor, he was met with a fierce attack. Stain, who had been silent until now, questioned why Izuku wasn't helping Dabi, suggesting that taking such an attack head-on must have left him injured. Izuku chuckled, urging them to watch. As Endeavor halted his assault, both he and Stain were taken aback by Dabi's response, who remarked on the low blow of attacking his own child with such force. Dabi felt invigorated, thanks to Izuku's enhancements to his quirk. Izuku confirmed that he had limited chances to alter a person's quirk throughout their life and emphasized the importance of doing his best in such matters. He assured Dabi that he would always strive to help or punish as necessary, and Endeavor would soon understand the consequences of his actions. Now it was time for the show to begin. With a chuckle, he created some instruments and started to sing, setting a cinematic atmosphere for the unfolding battle. Dabi nodded, a feral grin spreading across his face as he engaged in combat, eager to experiment with his new quirk. He propelled himself forward, using flames on the soles of his feet, and struck Endeavor in the gut. As Endeavor doubled over, Dabi unleashed a series of swift, fluid movements that resembled breakdancing, each strike landing with precision. The impact sent Endeavor flying, but he quickly recovered and retaliated. Just as Endeavor launched his counterattack, Dabi decided to test one of his new abilities. He absorbed the flames aimed at him and once he had consumed them all, unleashed them back at Endeavor with even greater intensity. As the dust settled, it was clear that the fight was nearing its conclusion. Endeavor struggled to stay on his feet, his body overheating and injuries taking their toll, leaving him unable to use his quirk for some time. Dabi taunted his father, expressing amusement at how Endeavor had failed to land a single blow despite Dabi's lack of practice with his upgraded quirk. Izuku then captured Endeavor in a beam of light, covering his mouth to silence him. He declared that it was time to reveal Endeavor's memories and alter his quirk. The reactions from the onlookers varied. Stain appeared shocked yet pleased, while Endeavor looked terrified, and Dabi felt a mix of excitement and dread. Noticing Dabi's conflicted emotions, Izuku reassured him that he didn't have to relive painful memories if he didn't want to. Dabi appreciated the concern but explained that he would always carry those memories as a reminder of the cruelty people could inflict, emphasizing the need for individuals like Izuku and Stain, who pursued justice regardless of fame or wealth. Stain was surprised but happy to see Dabi's kindness. Izuku reiterated that Dabi was a strong person for maintaining his compassion despite his past. He then prepared to expose Endeavor's memories, revealing a series of dark truths: illegal forced quirk marriages, abuse of his family, covering up a child's death, and numerous instances of excessive force and public endangerment. The memories also showed how the Commission had consistently protected Endeavor, hiding his crimes and allowing him to evade accountability. As the revelations unfolded, Stain appeared ready to take drastic action against Endeavor, while Dabi looked saddened by the memories of his siblings, and Izuku felt disgusted by Endeavor's actions. Izuku confronted Endeavor, stating that he had no right to label anyone a failure or villain. Turning to Dabi, Izuku suggested reaching out to his siblings, believing they would want to reconnect, especially Dabi's younger brother, who might be feeling isolated due to Endeavor's influence. Dabi felt conflicted but was open to the idea. Stain, eager for vengeance, asked if he could eliminate Endeavor. Izuku explained that he intended for Endeavor to face justice rather than escape through death, as he had the means to ensure the truth was revealed. After contemplating Izuku's words, Stain recognized the importance of exposing Endeavor's actions. Izuku then proceeded to alter Endeavor's quirk, ensuring that using his flames would cause him pain, that overheating would occur rapidly, and that he would be unable to prevent his flames from damaging his clothes and hair. As Dabi listened, he found himself amused by the changes. Izuku then asked Dabi to take Stain to the apartment for a discussion, wanting to speak with Endeavor before calling the authorities. Dabi, trusting Izuku, agreed to watch the recording of the conversation later. Izuku turned to Endeavor and posed a thought-provoking question. If he were to die today, would he be proud of his life? Would anyone mourn his passing, including his children? Endeavor looked contemplative, genuinely considering the weight of the inquiry. Izuku shared that he believed music was a powerful medium for conveying messages and decided to use it to make his point before contacting the police. He began to sing and play, setting the stage for the final act of this confrontation. It was evident that Endeavor had made an impact, as tears streamed down his face. Izuku turned to his drone and conveyed a heartfelt message, urging everyone to never take their loved ones for granted. He encouraged those watching to reflect on their lives, asking if they could hold their heads high if today were their last. Izuku believed that most of his songs carried important messages and lessons that he wanted people to hear. Just before leaving, he expressed that the only punishment he felt was deserved was for those who had harmed children. As he walked away, Izuku created a revolver and aimed it at Endeavor, delivering a symbolic blow before calling the authorities. Once he was almost home, he spotted Stain and Dabi, dropping down to join them. Upon arriving at the apartment building, he wished Dabi a good night, mentioning that he would edit his videos from the past few days and release them the next day. He also suggested that Stain find rest in one of the vacant rooms, acknowledging that although his injuries had healed, the mental fatigue from the pain would linger. Stain agreed, grateful for the opportunity to rest, knowing he wouldn't turn down a bed. The following day, Izuku was seen walking towards the apartment with Eri perched on his shoulders. He reassured her that the new person they would meet might seem intimidating, but he was someone like Izuku, trying to do good in his own way. Eri nodded, determined to be good. Izuku reminded her that everyone would be there to protect her, which made her smile as she hugged his head, feeling cherished. Upon arrival, Izuku noticed Stain sitting in the common area with the others. He greeted everyone and placed a button on the table, drawing curious looks from the group. He explained that the button would release everything he had recorded since meeting Dabi, and with one push, Endeavor would face the consequences of his actions. Izuku smiled, chuckling softly at their shocked expressions. He believed it was only fair to offer Dabi the chance to take this step, as it would reveal the truth about Endeavor and his family to the world. He also saw it as a reward for Dabi's impressive victory over Endeavor with a different quirk. Dabi approached the table, expressing his gratitude. He acknowledged that it would take time to learn how to control his new abilities but found it easier than expected. He picked up the button, reflecting on how pressing it would fulfill his original goal of becoming a vigilante. However, he intended to continue his efforts, having witnessed the injustices in society. With conviction, he pressed the button. Izuku remarked that anyone watching the videos would agree that Endeavor had been a problem, failing both as a father and a hero. He suggested making everyone something to eat while they waited for the news to catch up with the videos. The group responded eagerly, expressing their appreciation for his willingness to help. As Izuku headed to the kitchen, Stain asked if he was always this welcoming. Mustard chimed in, questioning if it was his maturity that stood out. Toga affirmed that since Izuku had helped her, he had been nothing but caring and supportive, never raising his voice. Mustard noted that Izuku had taken them in and treated them like family, showcasing his selflessness. Stain was taken aback by the concept of family, recognizing the kindness Izuku had shown in bringing them together. Slime added with a chuckle that Izuku was like their guardian angel. The group laughed, and soon after, Izuku returned with a tray of 8 bowls of food. He humbly stated that he was not an angel, acknowledging his flaws and the complexity of his actions. He expressed his frustration with society's inaction towards those who had suffered, emphasizing his desire to provide a safe space for everyone. You are not villains because of your quirks, you are people who needed help, and I offered it. I believe that being here with others who can understand your pain and hopefully build positive bonds will be good for you. Now, eat up before it gets cold, said while sitting with Eri to eat. As they finished their meal, the news turned on, and Izuku noted that it had started sooner than he expected. He had uploaded many videos, each containing troubling information. The first video hinted at Endeavor while sharing both Hawks and Lady Negan's stories, explaining why he would never work for or with the Commission. This revelation shocked everyone, as no one else had been present during those events. He handed Eri his phone and put headphones on her to keep her distracted, stating that she had seen enough of how harsh the world could be. The news anchor announced that the vigilante Azrael had uploaded multiple videos today, all containing intriguing and disturbing information. They would show them in order and provide commentary afterward. The first video displayed Izuku's conversation with All Might and his encounter with Dabi. The anchor remarked on the insights gained, particularly regarding All Might's recent support for the quirkless. They expressed concern over Azrael's statement that the abuse of the quirkless might lead to the next All Might becoming a villain, acknowledging that everyone has a breaking point. The next segment of the video discussed why Azrael believed it would be impossible for him to be a hero, referencing the backstory of the sludge villain. The anchor agreed that it was difficult to view the sludge villain as evil after hearing his story. Azrael pointed out that heroes often simply defeat villains without understanding the reasons behind their actions, emphasizing that some villains just need help, which he had already demonstrated with the sludge villain. He also mentioned the incident involving Captain Celebrity, asserting that he would not overlook wrongdoing just because someone was famous or powerful. He believed that heroes who break the law for selfish reasons should face harsher consequences. When All Might questioned why this would prevent him from being a hero, Azrael highlighted that while many heroes genuinely want to do good, they often have to turn a blind eye if the Commission disapproves. He noted that the Commission had been covering for Captain Celebrity. To illustrate his point about the Commission's corruption, Azrael shared the stories of Hawks and Lady Nagant. The anchor expressed belief that the Commission was becoming more of a problem than a solution, especially with the revelations that followed in the other videos. As the video continued, the sound of a battle could be heard nearby, prompting Azrael to rush toward the noise. Upon arrival, he encountered the new vigilante Dabi and a civilian. Confusingly, Azrael captured the civilian, referring to him as a creature. When he explained that he viewed anyone who would harm a child as a beast, the situation became clearer. He then proceeded to reveal the memories of this individual, validating his claims. Azrael then spoke to Dabi, expressing that after witnessing his memories and understanding what Endeavor had done to his family, he could not ignore the situation and wanted to talk. While this brought to light much information, it also hinted at unresolved issues, particularly concerning Endeavor, which would be revealed in the upcoming videos. The news transitioned to more information-heavy videos, beginning with Dabi sharing his story and detailing Endeavor's actions toward his family. This was also the first time Dabi was shown healed. The anchor noted that if Dabi's claims were true, he was actually Endeavor's oldest child, making sense of his emotions. They praised the song accompanying the video, appreciating its message about strength. The video then depicted Azrael and Dabi preparing to confront Endeavor. Just before they could intervene, Stain attacked Endeavor. Azrael stated they would only step in if Stain was about to lose. The footage showed Stain's fight, with Endeavor on the verge of victory before Azrael and Dabi intervened. Dabi rushed toward Endeavor, pushing him away from Azrael and Stain. The video captured the conversation between Stain and Azrael, followed by their approach to Endeavor and Dabi. In this exchange, Endeavor ultimately admitted that Dabi was his child, which incited Azrael's anger at Endeavor for being a failure. The video then showed Dabi overpowering Endeavor easily, followed by Azrael revealing Endeavor's memories and how he altered his quirk. Izuku was seen helping Dabi and Stain leave before questioning Endeavor and singing him a song, sharing a few messages with the camera before concluding the video. The anchor expressed disbelief that Endeavor, the number 2 hero, had so many crimes associated with him. They were also appalled to see the Commission's cover-up of heroes' crimes, viewing it as proof of their corruption. The mention that Stain resorted to violence only after being ignored and that the Commission would suppress any evidence he tried to present further confirmed that they were more of a problem than a solution at this point. Seeing how strong Dabi was with a completely different and new quirk was impressive, and Azrael's messages he left were something Azrael could finally agree with. The Commission would not be able to avoid the consequences this time. The first reactions came from Izuku's group, mainly Slime, Dabi, and Stain. As the first video played, Izuku was explaining to All Might why he felt he couldn't be a hero. He glanced over at Slime, who appeared a bit tearful. Izuku reassured him that he was not evil for the choices he had to make during difficult times. Anyone who would label him as such were the true villains. Slime smiled in gratitude, and they continued watching. After Izuku revealed the truth about Lady Nagant, Stain looked shocked. He expressed his sorrow upon learning that she had been used and discarded, and he found the idea of her being treated like property to be utterly repulsive. Izuku agreed, noting how well the situation had been covered up. His ability to see crimes and their motivations helped him uncover hidden truths, and he felt angered by the idea of child soldiers being created. The group fell silent after witnessing Izuku's emotional reaction to Stain's story. Toga broke the silence, questioning if Stain's backstory was truly that sad. Before Izuku could respond, they saw Stain apologize for the painful memories, prompting Izuku to hug him and insist that he should never apologize for being a victim. Izuku remarked that Stain embodied the essence of a hero, someone who, despite losing everything, still sought to do good. He expressed his respect for Stain, acknowledging how few could maintain that resolve after such hardships. He also reassured Stain that he was welcome to stay as long as he needed. The news then shifted to Izuku's furious confrontation with Endeavor and Dabi's subsequent fight with him. Toga exclaimed her surprise at seeing Izuku raise his voice, while Mustard expressed understanding for Izuku's anger, noting the complexity of Endeavor's feelings upon discovering his son was alive after believing him dead. After the fight, Toga praised Dabi for his victory, stating that Izuku didn't even need to intervene. Izuku clarified that he had only stopped the fight because Dabi had already won and he wanted Endeavor to witness the memories he was about to reveal. As the memories and quirk alterations were shown, Dabi and Stain prepared to leave, leading to Izuku's conversation with them. Everyone looked at Izuku, who explained that he hoped his actions would inspire others to reflect on their own behavior. The scene shifted to Izuku playfully shooting Endeavor with a projectile before turning off the camera, prompting surprised looks from everyone. Dabi burst into laughter, and Izuku defended his actions, stating that it was a fitting punishment for someone who had harmed children. Next, the narrative shifted to All for One, who found it intriguing how izuku altered quirks. He pondered why izuku seemed to make powerful quirks worse instead of simply disabling them. A realization struck him. Since izuku could see people's memories, he would have knowledge of All Might, leading All for One to chuckle at izuku's cleverness in preventing him from taking powerful quirks while still punishing their users. At the Todoroki household, the atmosphere was tense. Fuyumi expressed her mixed feelings about Dabi's return and Endeavor's arrest, unsure whether to feel happiness, sadness, or anger. Natsuo, however, was less surprised, acknowledging their family's history with Endeavor's behavior but expressing hope to see Dabi again soon. Shoto, overwhelmed by the revelations, sat in shock, tears forming in his eyes as he processed the truth about Endeavor and Dabi's identity. He felt grateful that Toya always tried to help him. After seeing Endeavor's memories, he now understood that he would face even harsher consequences because of it, yet he still wanted to meet him and express his thanks. Hawks struggled to comprehend the situation. The man he had once respected for rescuing him from an abusive home was now revealed to be inflicting similar pain on his own family. He was uncertain about how to feel. Part of him was relieved that his past had been exposed, which might allow him to reclaim some of his free will. However, he was also anxious about the Commission's potential response. The UA heroes and All Might were processing the revelations. Nizu remarked that he hadn't anticipated such a turn of events. It was enlightening. Midnight countered, expressing disgust at the situation, noting that Endeavor had essentially tortured his children. She questioned why the multiple deaths associated with him had been overlooked, asserting that he was no hero and had a higher body count than most villains they apprehended. Eraserhead added that the Commission's corruption had been brought to light, indicating that significant changes would be necessary for the public to trust them and likely the heroes as well. He wondered what the Commission's reaction would be. All Might was in shock, grappling with the realization that Endeavor had committed such cold-hearted acts. Present Mike expressed curiosity about Azrael's reaction after witnessing Stain and why Stain had apologized, only for Azrael to embrace him. Nizu speculated that Azrael must have seen Stain's troubled history, which likely explained the hug and Azrael's reassurance that Stain should not apologize for being a victim. This suggested that there was more to the hero killer than they had initially believed. Eraserhead inquired about Endeavor's current whereabouts, emphasizing the need to ensure his arrest before the Commission could intervene. They all agreed and set off to make it known that he would be sent to jail after his release from the hospital. At the hospital, they learned that Endeavor was already awake, prompting Eraserhead, Nizu, and All Might to enter his room. Endeavor acknowledged that Azrael had likely posted his videos online. Nizu confirmed this, explaining that once Endeavor was released from the hospital, he would be placed in a temporary cell until his court trial, and his hero license would be revoked. All Might questioned Endeavor's motivations, to which Endeavor confessed that his obsession with surpassing All Might had blinded him to everything else, leading him to disregard anything that did not contribute to that goal. This marked the end of that chapter, with the next part focusing on a conversation with Stain and the beginning of the Commission's panic and desperation. After everyone calmed down, Izuku began to speak. He had 2 questions for Stain: whether he would be willing to share his story and if he could record it. Stain paused to consider his response. He was not outright refusing but wanted to understand why Izuku wanted to document his story. Izuku explained that he believed the world needed to see that Stain was not the mindless killer the Commission portrayed him to be. He aimed to use Stain's story to expose the Commission's corruption. Stain agreed to share his story and allow the recording, expressing his desire for the Commission to be dismantled or reformed. Izuku thanked him and began setting up his drone to capture the conversation. Stain started recounting his past as the vigilante Stendhal, who was well known and liked at the time. One day, he witnessed a hero demanding money from a civilian as a form of gratitude for assistance. Outraged by the hero's entitlement, Stain recorded the incident and confronted the hero, ultimately knocking him out and returning the money to the civilian before leaving. Over the following months, Stain closely observed heroes, intervening when he saw them breaking the law. He decided to present his evidence to the Commission after stopping a hero from assaulting a woman. However, when he approached the Commission with his findings, they ignored the evidence and attempted to arrest him instead. Stain explained that he managed to escape and posted his videos online, but the commission consistently deleted them. Eventually, he gave up on sharing the videos and focused on helping others while keeping a watchful eye on heroes, sometimes intervening when necessary. He paused, a mix of anger and sadness washing over him before he sighed and continued. Stain revealed that he had become a nuisance to corrupt heroes, leading a group of them to devise a plan to send him a warning for crossing the wrong people. They hired a group of villains who shared their disdain for him and instructed them to destroy the one thing he cherished most in the world. It was evident that he was struggling to hold back tears as he continued his story. Stain reflected on his past, revealing that he had been married and his wife was Prt. She was his everything, the only person who looked past his quirk, which was often despised due to its blood-related nature. Unbeknownst to him, a corrupt hero with an invisibility quirk had teamed up with another who could enhance speed and strength for a limited time. They used this power to track him, learning his routines and spying on his home, where they observed his wife. At this point, he could no longer contain his emotions, and tears streamed down his face. He recounted a fateful patrol where he was ambushed by a group of those false heroes. They had no intention of fighting, their goal was to delay him. Just as he was about to defeat the last one, the villain laughed and informed him that it was already too late. Their mission was to prevent him from returning home. Stain froze for a moment before sprinting back, only to find his front door shattered and the house eerily silent. As he stepped inside, he was paralyzed with horror. His beloved wife lay lifeless in the living room, and the sight of her was devastating. The cruel act of violence had been taken further. They had harmed her unborn child and left a gruesome message on the wall, a warning not to cross them again. Overwhelmed, he fell into autopilot and called the police, but they had been waiting for him. The corrupt officers, likely bribed, accused him of the crime and attacked without hesitation. In a panic, he fled, desperate to escape the chaos that threatened to consume him. He ran into the woods, where he eventually collapsed from the weight of it all. Unbeknownst to him, the invisible villain had followed. When he regained consciousness, he found himself pinned down, and the villain delivered a final warning before inflicting a painful injury and leaving him behind, laughing. As he recounted these events, he looked up to see the reactions of those around him. Toga was in tears, and Mustard appeared on the verge of joining her. Dabi and Slime wore expressions of mixed sadness and anger. While Izuku's look was particularly perplexing, he seemed both sadder and more understanding than the others. Stain continued his tale, expressing how he felt empty and lost for a long time, wandering aimlessly until he stumbled upon an electronics store broadcasting news that accused him of murdering his wife. Consumed by rage, he resolved that if the law would not deliver justice, he would take matters into his own hands. He transformed from Stendhal into Stain, a name that embodied the corruption of society. Even as Stain, he attempted to gather evidence against the heroes he had taken down, but the commission consistently silenced him. He felt powerless to reveal the truth that many heroes were far worse than the villains they hunted. Once he finished his story, Izuku stood up and approached Stain. He encouraged him not to suppress his emotions, assuring him that he would not be judged for expressing his pain. Izuku believed that tears were a sign of strength, and Stain had been strong for far too long. Acknowledging that this was the first time Stain had shared his full story, Izuku urged him to let it all out. Hearing this, Stain began to sob quietly. Izuku then offered to share 2 song ideas inspired by Stain's story, hoping they would provide some comfort. Stain, noticing the somber mood in the room, agreed to listen. Izuku explained that the first song was sad, inspired by memories of his own mother, while the second was specifically about Stain. He began to play and sing, filling the space with a melody that resonated with their shared emotions. Izuku reflected on Stain's past, acknowledging the immense struggles he had faced. Despite being labeled a villain by many, Stain's determination to do good shone through. Izuku decided to pause his drone recording, planning to edit and release the footage the following day. This approach would allow the public time to process the information, making it more impactful and igniting further interest. Outside the commission building, a protest erupted in response to the recent revelations of corruption. Police and some heroes attempted to disperse the crowd, but their efforts were largely ignored. Inside the commission, the president was in a state of panic. He lamented the chaos Azrael had caused, realizing that the hero's intelligence and strength made it nearly impossible to erase the evidence of his actions. Unlike Stain, who could be easily vilified, Azrael had demonstrated to the public that his intentions were noble, complicating the commission's narrative. Unbeknownst to the commission, Stain's story was about to garner even more public sympathy, intensifying the backlash against them. The next morning, the news was buzzing with Azrael's latest video, where he invited Stain to share his story. The broadcast captured the essence of Stain's journey, and even the news anchor struggled to maintain composure while recounting Stain's past as a respected vigilante. The anchor expressed frustration over how the commission had forced a once-admired hero into a life of violence, calling for a change in leadership. At a heroes meeting, Nizu turned off the news and shared his surprise at learning about Stain's history. He agreed with the news anchor that the commission needed a significant overhaul to regain public trust. Eraserhead suggested reaching out to Azrael for assistance, noting that his ability to expose corruption could be invaluable. All Might concurred, recognizing that Azrael's involvement could foster cooperation in the future. Nizu asked All Might to approach Azrael, believing that Stain respected him. Eraserhead was also deemed a suitable choice due to his underground status. All Might agreed to the task, eager to act swiftly to prevent the commission from making further mistakes. Midnight expressed concern about the safety of their visit, given Azrael's protective nature. All Might reassured her, confident that Azrael would sense their honesty. Nizu requested that they wear body cameras and earpieces for communication, suggesting they visit Azrael's apartment first. As they prepared to leave, Izuku turned off the news and turned to Stain, noting that the public seemed to finally be listening. Stain smiled, feeling a sense of relief that his voice was being heard without the commission's interference. Toga remarked on the commission's precarious situation, while Mustard pointed out the overwhelming evidence against them. Slime speculated on how the heroes would respond, wondering which side they would choose. Izuku predicted that while some heroes might cling to the commission, the majority would likely seek to reform it and regain public trust. Just then, a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find All Might and Eraserhead, who were looking to speak with Azrael, unaware of Izuku's true identity. Eraserhead inquired about the identity of the newcomers, expressing that he did not recall seeing them in any of Azrael's videos. Izuku explained that he owned the property they were on and questioned their desire to speak with Azrael. The heroes, including those watching through the camera, were taken aback by this revelation. Eraserhead remarked that Izuku seemed too young to own property, to which Izuku responded that he had been legally emancipated following his mother's passing, granting him the freedom to make his own decisions. All Might expressed hope that Azrael would assist them in dealing with the commission, noting that his ability to reveal a person's crimes would be invaluable in identifying the guilty parties. Izuku paused for a moment before allowing them entry. Once inside, he closed the door and led them to the common area where everyone was gathered. He introduced the heroes to the group, stating that they had come seeking help. He then took a seat and gestured for All Might and Eraserhead to sit on one of the sofas. The others in the room, aside from Izuku and the heroes, glanced at Stain, who calmly reassured them that he respected both heroes. He acknowledged All Might as one of the most respected heroes and noted that Eraserhead operated as an underground hero, working at night and avoiding the media. Eri, noticing the new faces for the first time, approached Izuku and settled on his lap, seeking comfort. All Might then asked about Azrael's whereabouts and noted the presence of someone he did not recognize. Eraserhead, observing Izuku's distinctive hair, guessed that he had once been the sludge villain. In the background, only Stain and Dabi noticed the light chains positioned just behind All Might and Eraserhead's necks, poised to quickly wrap around them if necessary. Dabi believed they were present in case anything was said or done to Slime, knowing how protective Izuku was. Izuku, with a slight edge in his voice, questioned if there was a problem with that, surprising the heroes. Over the earpiece, Nizu requested to be put on loudspeaker so everyone could hear him. He asked if Izuku was Azrael, which startled both the heroes in the room and those with Nizu. Izuku chuckled, revealing his light chains, shocking all the heroes before his form changed. He acknowledged Nizu's correct guess. Eraserhead expressed surprise at the chains, to which Izuku admitted he was very protective of everyone present. When slime was mentioned, he felt concerned that something rude might be said or done, so he had the chains ready to restrain anyone who crossed the line. The heroes collectively noted how overprotective he could be, with one remarking that it was a prime example of protectiveness. Eraserhead clarified that his surprise stemmed from Izuku's presence, given that he hadn't had the apartment building when he helped Slime. Izuku explained that after purchasing the building, he spent time tracking Slime down to check on him and see if he wanted to move in. He finally made contact a few days after meeting Mustard. Nizu inquired if Izuku would be willing to help them, to which Izuku responded with a couple of conditions. First, he insisted they could not attempt to arrest him during the days he assisted them, nor could they harm or arrest anyone in the house. He also stated he would record his assistance and the findings related to the commission to expose any wrongdoing to the public. He emphasized that his stance on child abuse would remain unchanged, and if anyone was particularly bad, he would make them confront the consequences of their actions. Eraserhead asked about the punishment Izuku imposed on child abusers. Izuku explained that for male offenders, he would disable their quirk if it was strong or dangerous and then inflict harm. For female offenders, he would use his knowledge of anatomy to cause damage that would lead to pain and difficulty in having children. The heroes were taken aback by this revelation, with Izuku noting that he had not hidden his actions from anyone, including Endeavor. The heroes were shocked to learn of Izuku's past actions, and All Might shook his head in disbelief. Nizu agreed to the terms but asked why Izuku hadn't had wings when he answered the door. Izuku began to explain. Izuku felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that Nizu had agreed to his terms. He mentioned that their conversation had been recorded and hinted at his ability to control light. Nizu acknowledged the cleverness of making things invisible and expressed no concern about the recording. Curious about their plans, Izuku asked when they intended to confront the commission. Nizu replied that it should happen soon, ideally today or tomorrow, to prevent the commission president from making any rash decisions. Izuku agreed, recognizing the potential for desperate actions from the cornered commission. Eraserhead suggested they act early the next morning, allowing time to gather as many heroes as possible. Nizu concurred, emphasizing the importance of being cautious. Izuku expressed his doubts about the commission president's willingness to accept responsibility, noting that some people refuse to acknowledge their actions. All Might agreed, highlighting that accountability is a challenge for many. Nizu excused himself to start rallying more support, leaving the other heroes in the room. They chose to remain silent for the moment, waiting to see what would unfold. Izuku then shifted the conversation, asking if anyone wanted a drink or snack. Most declined, but Toga requested tea and biscuits, Eri asked for apple juice, and Eraserhead opted for coffee. Izuku got up, he carefully moved Eri from his lap to sit beside Slime, asking him to keep an eye on her. Once Izuku left the room, Eraserhead initiated a conversation. He inquired about how things had been since the others started living there. Toga expressed her happiness, noting that it was the first place where she felt accepted and treated like everyone else. Mustard agreed, stating that Izuku was a kind and protective person. Slime added that Izuku was the first person since he had gained his quirk to treat him with respect. Dabi shared his admiration for Izuku, acknowledging his willingness to help others. Stain, who had only been there for a short time, commented that Izuku seemed more mature than his age. Just then, Izuku returned with the requested items. He expressed his happiness that everyone was enjoying their time living there. He addressed Stain's comment about maturity, explaining that his experiences had shaped him to be more mature than most his age. He then turned to Eri, asking if she wanted to sit with him again or stay with Slime. Eri chose to stay with her big brother, and Izuku happily handed her the apple juice. That was fine with the Slime. The Slime expressed its willingness to always watch over, care for, or spend time with Eri. Izuku chuckled as he took a seat. All Might noted how much the Slime seemed to care for the little one. The Slime shared its past, revealing that most people had treated it poorly throughout its life. Even after learning that it had once been a villain, Eri had not been scared but had instead shown sympathy, something the slime had never received from its own parents or those who had seen it on the streets as a child. Eraserhead expressed happiness that the slime had found a place where it felt welcome. Izuku then asked what they thought about the situation with Endeavor. Both Eraserhead and All Might appeared uncomfortable discussing it. Eraserhead mentioned that he had always believed Endeavor was unfit to be a hero, and after seeing his memories, he felt no sympathy for him. All Might was puzzled, recalling their time together at UA, never expecting Endeavor to commit such terrible acts. Dabi explained that Endeavor had become obsessed with being number one and couldn't handle being in second place. They continued their conversation for nearly an hour until Nizu returned with news. He had contacted several trustworthy heroes and a detective friend with a lie detector quirk to validate their findings. Nizu asked if they were okay with proceeding with the operation the next morning at 7 a.m. Izuku agreed, expressing his desire to see the commission restructured to be more transparent to the public. Nizu acknowledged that significant changes were necessary for the public to regain trust after everything that had happened. Izuku expressed regret for the good heroes affected by the situation but insisted that justice must be served, even if it exposed flaws in society and the system. The next morning, outside the commission building, the heroes, Detective, and Azrael awaited the signal to rush in and arrest everyone involved. Izuku assessed the security, noting a mix of individuals guarding the door. One was an ordinary person, while the other had misused his position to steal and assault others without consequence. The detective confirmed that Izuku was telling the truth. When they received the signal from Nizu, the heroes rushed into the building from both exits, ensuring no one could escape. Fortunately, most individuals Izuku observed had minor offenses, but when they reached the president's office, they were shocked to find 4 notorious villains outside the door, individuals who should have been in high-security prisons. Izuku was genuinely shocked, questioning whether the president had really released dangerous prisoners to shield them from accountability. The heroes were left speechless. Izuku proceeded to identify the villains by their quirks and names. Wheezing, who could induce severe coughing fits. Wasp, who could grow poisonous stingers. Puppet Master, who could control human-shaped dolls. And Cannibal Beast, who could transform into a powerful humanoid bear. All of them should have been imprisoned for life, with a body count in the triple digits. Wasp taunted the heroes, reminding them of their past difficulties in capturing them. Wheezing echoed this sentiment, while Beast expressed his eagerness to taste flesh again. Puppet Master simply wanted to finish the task at hand. Izuku, unimpressed, remarked that they were more annoying than strong. Beast, angered, charged at Izuku in his bear form, attempting to slash him with claws. However, Izuku swiftly countered, sending Beast flying backward, leaving the other villains shocked and annoyed. Wasp dismissed the situation as dramatic until he noticed Beast coughing up blood, which left him stunned. Izuku expressed his deep disdain for those who harm children, revealing that it took all his willpower not to kill Beast, who had taken pleasure in such acts. Present Mike was horrified, demanding to know what Beast had done to children. Izuku explained that before his arrest, Beast had enjoyed torturing children, allowing them to die slowly from blood loss or shock. With a holy light sword and pistol in hand, Izuku warned the villains that his weapons would deal greater damage based on their evilness and the number of crimes they had committed. The villains were now shocked and a bit worried, knowing the extent of their wrongdoing. The 4 villains, upon realizing that Izuku's weapon would inflict greater pain depending on their moral character, became significantly more cautious in their approach. Eraserhead decided to confront the Puppet Master, confident that he could prevent her from controlling anyone. Ectoplasm chose to face Wheezing Cough, believing that his clones would keep him safe. Izuku opted to take on Wasp and Beast, feeling they wouldn't pose much of a threat. With their roles established, the battles commenced. Izuku charged forward, swinging his blade at Wasp, who narrowly dodged but still felt the sting of the blade graze him. Wasp exclaimed in frustration, feeling the unexpected pain from the minor injury. Izuku explained that his weapon inflicted more damage on those with evil intentions and heightened the pain of any injuries based on their wickedness. Both villains exchanged worried glances. Realizing they needed to collaborate, Wasp urged Beast to work together against Izuku. Beast reluctantly agreed, and they charged at Izuku, with Beast. taking the lead to draw Izuku's attention while Wasp prepared to strike from behind. Beast attempted to slash at Izuku, but he skillfully evaded the attacks. As Wasp saw an opening, he lunged forward with his stingers, only for Izuku to block the attack with a wall of light. In retaliation, Izuku shot Wasp in the kneecap, and both villains found themselves ensnared by light chains, distracted by their injuries. Seizing the moment, Izuku stabbed Beast in the leg, leaving his sword embedded before declaring he would assist with the others. Meanwhile, Eraserhead rushed toward the puppet master, activating his quirk as she attempted to control him. Confusion washed over her as she realized her powers were ineffective against him. Once in front of her, she recognized that her reliance on controlling others left her vulnerable. Eraserhead swiftly bound her with his scarf and incapacitated her with a powerful punch. Noticing Izuku approaching ectoplasm, he decided to follow suit after securing the puppet master with quirk-canceling HNDCFFS. Unlike the others, ectoplasm began creating clones instead of rushing into battle. Wheezing, recovering from the shock of the clone assault, fought back with determination, showcasing his skills. He explained that his quirk made him a formidable opponent, as any contact would leave his adversaries wheezing and struggling to fight back. The clones began to falter under his attacks, breaking down after sustaining too much damage. Ectoplasm chose to hold wheezing off until the others finished their fights. However, he soon noticed chains of light appearing behind wheezing, rapidly binding him before he could react. Izuku commended Ectoplasm for his strategy, noting that wheezing had a high body count among the villains, second only to a cannibalistic foe. Eraserhead, who had just arrived, confirmed his past encounters with wheezing, acknowledging his ability to fight even without his quirk. Izuku then decided to alter the villains' quirks to ensure they wouldn't be a threat if they were ever freed. As he approached wheezing, he explained the changes he was making to his quirk, detailing how it would now harm him more than his victims and require specific conditions to activate. Wheezing protested, realizing his quirk had been rendered nearly useless. Izuku instructed him to look into his eyes, promising not to harm him with his light dagger. Overwhelmed by the pain of his injuries, Wheezing succumbed to unconsciousness. Eraserhead placed HNDCFFS on Wheezing before Izuku moved on to the puppet master, waking her to inform her of the changes to her quirk. He explained that she could now only control a single object, or a weak individual would feel all damage inflicted on her controlled target and could be overpowered by someone stronger. The puppet master expressed her dismay at the loss of her powers, realizing the consequences of her past actions. Izuku instructed her to look into his eyes, and she complied, experiencing a wave of emotion before fainting. Next, Izuku turned his attention to Wasp, ready to impose a special punishment. He outlined the new conditions of Wasp's quirk, which would now cause him physical harm whenever he attempted to use it. With each villain subdued and their powers altered, the heroes stood ready to ensure that justice would prevail. Your poison will only affect you, making you more sensitive to pain when you create a stinger. Wasp felt defeated, realizing he would be quirkless from now on. Izuku chuckled darkly, suggesting that Wasp shouldn't be too upset, as what he planned for Beast would be far worse. Wasp, already aware of his fate, chose to listen, knowing he couldn't escape and feeling genuine fear for what would happen to Beast. He decided to pass out rather than face the reality. Once Izuku finished with Wasp and restrained him, he turned to Beast and stated that while he couldn't kill him, he could make his punishment far worse. He began outlining the changes he would impose on Beast's quirk. First, activating his quirk would cause unbearable itching, leading him to uncontrollably tear at his skin to reveal his transformation beneath, a pain he would never grow accustomed to. Second, Beast would not gain any strength from his transformation, it would only be a visual change. Lastly, he would be forced to transform every full moon, experiencing the associated pain just like the legends of werewolves. Everyone in the room was shocked by Izuku's brutality. He continued, announcing that it was time for Beast's current punishment. He struck Beast, forcing him to look into his eyes, and then glanced at the heroes after Beast passed out. Izuku noted the shock on their faces, explaining that if they had seen all of Beast's memories where he took pleasure in the suffering of others, they would understand his desire for revenge. He instructed them to restrain Beast and prepare to confront the commission president, requesting to go through the door first with a protective barrier, hoping to avoid any unnecessary injuries. The heroes silently agreed, recognizing that if they had witnessed Beast's memories, they might feel the same way. They also understood the need for caution with the commission president, who might release dangerous criminals. Once they finished handcuffing the villains, they called for additional heroes and police to assist while they approached the president's office. Izuku positioned himself in front of the heroes, creating a light barrier before opening the door. His decision proved wise as they were met with a barrage of bullets from wall-mounted guns that fired until empty. Izuku continued forward, maintaining the barrier until he stood before the commission president. He remarked on the president's unsettling appearance, questioning why anyone would be surprised to discover his true nature. The president, furious, demanded to know why Izuku was obstructing his plans, insisting he could have achieved greatness with his quirk. Izuku replied that he would rather die than ignore the injustice and corruption perpetuated by the president, who had broken numerous laws to maintain his power. He asked whether the president would surrender quietly or engage in a feudal fight. The president hesitated, then attempted to use his quirk, but Izuku swiftly activated his own abilities, binding the president with light chains. He instructed the president to remain still, assuring him that if he were innocent, he had nothing to fear. After looking into the president's eyes, the man screamed for several minutes. Before losing consciousness, Izuku noted that this was likely the longest anyone had been affected by his karmic stare, confirming the president's malicious nature. He then examined the president's quirk, discovering it was a powerful laser ability that could have caused harm. Instead, he decided to reduce it to a harmless visual effect, like a laser pointer. They proceeded to take the president to the ground floor, where Nizu and All Might awaited them. They recounted the events upstairs, detailing how the president had released dangerous criminals to attack them. All Might expressed disbelief that the president would endanger others to escape the consequences of his actions. Nizu concluded that at least they wouldn't have to worry about those villains again. Azrael appreciated the habit of making the dangerous quirks of evil individuals less harmful. It served as a fitting punishment. If they misused their abilities for malevolent purposes, they didn't deserve to keep them. Izuku agreed, stating that he only targeted those with powerful or dangerous quirks who had committed serious offenses. If someone had done something wrong but possessed a weak or unremarkable quirk, he would simply ensure they could not activate it. Nizu informed Izuku that the news media was waiting outside and would want to speak with him once he left the building. Izuku acknowledged that their work was not yet finished and offered to review the crimes of those involved, indicating he could help identify the innocent and share their memories. Nizu suggested it would be better to bring everyone to the police station to handle the situation in a controlled environment. He promised to send Izuku a text with the location for the following day, aiming to resolve everything as quickly as possible. Izuku planned to address the news outside before heading home. He wanted to check on everyone, especially Eri, as he needed a distraction from his upcoming meeting with Beast. After finishing his discussions with the heroes, Izuku was about to leave when Nizu inquired whether he would answer any questions from the reporters or leave quickly. Izuku decided he would respond to a few inquiries before departing, not wanting to appear rude. As he stepped outside, the news crews, initially shocked by Azrael's involvement in the operation, began shouting questions. Izuku calmed them down, stating he would answer a few questions before heading home. He had witnessed some distressing events and wanted to spend time with his daughter. He encouraged the reporters to discuss among themselves to determine the most important questions, or he would choose individuals at random. The reporters agreed to this approach and began conversing until the first question was posed. One reporter asked why Izuku was collaborating with the heroes on this operation. He explained that he had been asked to assist in providing evidence regarding who had broken the law. He felt it was necessary to help prevent the commission president from making a desperate mistake, although they had ultimately been a bit too late. When another reporter asked how they had been too slow, Izuku revealed that the commission president had foolishly released 4 dangerous criminals into his custody. Before they could reach his office, he and 2 heroes had to confront these individuals. The reporters were taken aback by this revelation. When one asked who the released criminals were, Izuku named them, Wheezing Cough, Puppet Master, Killer Wasp, and Cannibal Beast. The shock among the reporters was palpable, as many were familiar with these notorious figures. Izuku reassured them that these villains were no longer a threat to the public, as he had rendered their quirks either useless or more dangerous to themselves than to others. Once the reporters regained their composure, another question arose. Was everything resolved now? Izuku regrettably stated that it was not yet finished. The following day, after everyone was relocated to a secure police station, he would work with a detective possessing a lie detector quirk to determine who was guilty of what. He suggested that the heroes should focus on reforming the commission, proposing increased transparency and periodic public votes on the commission president's position to ensure accountability. The reporters acknowledged the merit of his suggestions. Izuku indicated he would answer one or two more questions before leaving. Although they were disappointed, the reporters understood that he could have chosen to leave without addressing them at all. One reporter asked if he would continue his work as a vigilante once the situation was resolved. Izuku affirmed that he would remain vigilant unless given a reason to stop. He believed that both Stain and Dabi would also continue their roles, as having individuals to hold heroes accountable was essential. Another reporter inquired whether Stain would still resort to killing. Izuku explained that Stain had only killed when he felt he had no other options to bring corrupt heroes to justice. With the commission dealt with, Stain could return to his previous methods of operation, and Izuku would assist him in sharing information online to prevent any evidence from being erased again. With that, Izuku announced he would be leaving, eager to spend time with Eri. Once everything was settled, Izuku planned to upload videos of the commission takedown and the interactions that followed. The group felt relieved to hear that Stain would stop his violent ways, and they looked forward to the footage documenting the events inside the commission building and the upcoming interrogations. Izuku then took to the skies, flying home. Upon arriving at his apartment building, he found everyone gathered in the common room, engrossed in the news, which was featuring his interview. He expressed his regret to Stain, acknowledging that his words might have put him in a difficult position. Izuku believed that Stain no longer needed to resort to violence. He offered to help by sharing proof of Stain's innocence with the public and even promised to enhance Stain's quirk while diminishing the powers of those he deemed evil. Stain was initially taken aback but responded calmly, explaining that he had only resorted to killing out of necessity, as it was either that or allowing the lawbreakers to continue harming others. Izuku mentioned that he needed to spend some time with Eri to help clear his mind of the troubling memories he had encountered while dealing with a villain earlier that day. Mustard inquired about what had upset him so much. Izuku decided to connect the recording of the raid to the TV so everyone could hear his confrontation with the heroes he had been with at the time. He replaced the drone's memory card and connected the old one to the TV, allowing the video to play as he took Eri for a walk. While they were out, the others watched the footage. Slime reacted with disgust and anger, expressing disbelief that the commission had chosen to release someone whose main targets were children. Stain urged Slime to calm down, understanding his frustration but encouraging him to take a deep breath. Slime apologized for his outburst, still shocked and confused by the commission's decision. Mustard speculated that the choice was likely due to the strength of the villain's quirk and Izuku's outspoken hatred for those who harmed children, evident in the video where Izuku's anger was palpable. Toga empathized with Izuku's feelings, recalling the horror of witnessing someone derive pleasure from harming innocent children. Dabi added that while the villain's quirk was impressive, it had its downsides, suggesting that witnessing such atrocities would undoubtedly affect a child, as Izuku had mentioned maturing faster because of it. Meanwhile, Izuku was walking with Eri on his shoulders, still dressed in his vigilante attire. As they passed an alleyway, Eri pointed out a strange noise, suggesting that something was happening nearby. Izuku paused to listen and soon heard the sound of someone being struck and muffled cries. He activated his drone to record before heading into the alley to investigate. Inside, he found a hero attacking a young person, around 17 to 19 years old, who had a mutant quirk. The hero, Electro, was berating the victim, calling them filth, and asserting their superiority over mutants. Eri urged Izuku to help the victim. Upon noticing Izuku and Eri, Electro froze in shock, but before he could react further, chains of light ensnared him. Izuku moved to the victim, who appeared barely conscious. He reassured the victim, who managed a weak smile before losing consciousness. Izuku healed the victim's wounds, allowing them to rest peacefully. He created a makeshift bed using his holy light and asked Eri to keep watch while he confronted the so-called hero. Eri agreed, and Izuku handed her his phone before approaching Electro. He explained that he had come out for a walk with his daughter to clear his mind, only to stumble upon a different kind of horror. He intended to reveal Electro's crimes, showing the camera the memories of his actions, which included attacking and abusing over 20 people with mutant quirks, killing 3 of them, and committing other heinous acts. Izuku condemned Electro, stating that people should not be judged by their quirks but by their actions. He then examined Electro's quirk, which allowed him to produce and manipulate electricity. Izuku announced the changes he would make. Electro would no longer be immune to his own electricity, would struggle to control it, and would find it much harder to release it, resulting in weaker discharges. As Izuku prepared to knock Electro out, the villain protested, realizing the implications of his now useless quirk. Izuku felt a surge of frustration as he faced Electro, who had just revealed his true colors. He knew that the man had never been a real hero, and even if he hadn't ruined his quirk, he would still be exposed once Izuku shared the video with others. Electro questioned why Izuku cared about what he did to the creatures he had been tormenting, but Izuku, irritated by his voice, swiftly knocked him out with a punch. He then turned to Eri, asking for his phone back, and called Nizu to inform him that he would be sending a video and needed someone to pick up the so-called hero. After watching the video, Nizu responded over the phone, confirming that he would send someone to retrieve Electro. He asked Izuku if he planned to take the victim somewhere safe. Izuku explained that he would bring the victim home for now, as the man had approached Electro for help after being attacked by someone else. He assured Nizu that he would still be at the station the next day and requested the location he needed to go to. Once the call ended, Izuku waited for Nizu's arrival. To his surprise, 3 clones of ectoplasm showed up to take Electro away. Izuku handed him over and then lifted Eri back onto his shoulders while carrying the victim. Upon returning to the apartment, he entered just as Dabi finished speaking. Izuku announced their return, mentioning the unexpected guest. As he entered the living room, he noticed the expressions on their faces and reassured them that while the actions of that man and the commission president were aggravating, they had been dealt with. Dabi inquired about the identity of the victim. Izuku admitted that he didn't know much yet, but he had saved him from a fake hero who had been attacking him due to his appearance. This revelation angered Dabi, Stain, and Slime. Stain remarked on the foolishness of a fake hero attacking someone in broad daylight, to which Izuku agreed, expressing his disdain for the man's actions. Izuku then asked Slime to take Eri off his shoulders so he could place the victim in one of the unoccupied rooms. He promised to prepare something to eat for everyone, and they all agreed it would be a nice gesture. After placing the victim in a room, Izuku returned to the living room and announced that he would make everyone something to eat while the victim rested. Dabi interrupted, wanting to know what had happened. Izuku decided to play the video on the TV again while he cooked. Meanwhile, Nizu was at the police station, busy organizing everything for the next day when he received a call from Azrael. Recognizing the caller, he quickly summoned some heroes present at the station, including Ectoplasm, Hound Dog, and Gang Orca. Once they gathered, Nizu answered the call, putting it on speaker and asking the others to be quiet. Azrael explained that he had been spending time with his daughter when she pointed out a noise from an alleyway. He had sent his drone to investigate and would send a copy of the video for Nizu to watch. After hanging up, Nizu informed the heroes that something unpleasant had surfaced, and he connected his phone to a computer so they could all view the video together. After watching the footage, which included the memories of the heroes, Gang Orca was the first to speak, expressing his shock and anger that a hero could behave in such a terrible manner. Hound Dog, visibly upset, urged him to calm down, reminding everyone that they were in a police station. Nizu then called Azrael back, confirming that he had watched the video and shared his frustration at the actions of the so-called hero. Azrael suggested that once the situation with the commission was resolved, they should investigate other heroes, as he suspected that Electro was not the only one with such a mindset. Now, the location was sent along with the fake, and the request was made for someone to pick him up. The plan was to wait until they arrived. Nizu confirmed that it would be fine to send over 3 of Ectoplasm's clones for the task. Izuku agreed, emphasizing the importance of ensuring the individual faced consequences for his actions. This was crucial to send a message to others with similar mindsets that they would be held accountable for their harmful views. Once Ectoplasm's clones returned, they shared their brief conversation with Azrael. Nizu noted that Azrael's group might have gained another member, a victim of society's failures. Hound Dog pointed out the positive aspect. Everyone Azrael had helped seemed well cared for, and from the video where All Might and Eraser had visited their home, it was clear that Azrael genuinely cared for them, even if he was overly protective. Nizu acknowledged this but expressed concern that Azrael might post the video featuring a failed hero and another about the victim's plight online. This could further expose society's issues and escalate tensions. He decided to ask Azrael to delay releasing those videos until the situation with the commission was sorted out. Gang Orca wondered if Azrael would listen to this request. Nizu felt confident that Azrael was reasonable and would consider his reasons. The heroes, after some contemplation, agreed and returned to their duties. Back in the present, reactions to the video were mixed. Toga felt a blend of disgust, anger, and sadness. She was appalled that someone would commit such terrible acts based solely on appearances. Mustard urged her to calm down, reminding her that one of the victims was upstairs resting. Toga apologized, shocked that anyone could act so cruelly over differences in appearance. Slime chimed in, noting that this mindset was more common than one might think, having experienced it firsthand. The group recalled that Slime had once possessed a mutant quirk. Toga expressed her regret for her earlier words, genuinely concerned for Slime's feelings. He reassured her that he understood her intentions and emphasized that, while shocking, such mindsets were unfortunately not rare. Izuku entered the room to announce that food was ready but noticed the tension and chose not to comment just yet. He acknowledged the troubling mindset they were discussing and called everyone to eat, encouraging the hesitant victim to join them. Once in the kitchen, Izuku hoped everyone would enjoy the meal. After they finished eating, he turned to the victim and directly asked for his name and if he would share his story, offering to record it. The victim, hesitant, introduced himself as Spinner, having abandoned his name long ago. He questioned why Izuku wanted to know and record his story. Izuku explained that he had heard about Spinner's encounter with the fake and wanted to document his experience to raise awareness about the challenges faced by mutant quirk holders. Spinner, feeling he had nothing to lose, agreed to share his story, and Izuku began recording. Spinner began recounting his life, revealing that he was 18 and had been born with mutations that his parents rejected. His mother could cling to surfaces, and his father could temporarily cover his skin with scales. Spinner's quirk was a fusion of these traits, yet his parents still disliked him for how he looked. Their mistreatment escalated over the years, becoming violent and abusive, until they ultimately kicked him out. For the past 2.5 years, he had been fending for himself while facing the prejudice directed at mutant quirk holders. As he spoke, he looked down, finally glancing up to gauge their reactions. The sympathetic expressions from Slime, Toga, and Mustard reflected their own experiences, while Stain maintained his serious demeanor, and Dabi appeared both sympathetic and angry. Izuku reassured Spinner that it was understandable to be shocked by their reactions, as many had faced similar struggles. He expressed his sorrow that Spinner had such unkind parents. What happened that made you seek help from that fake hero? Spinner explained that he had an under-the-table job to earn some money. After getting paid, he intended to buy food, but on his way to the store, he was spotted by some individuals who harbored disdain for mutants. They confronted him, took his money, and when he noticed a hero nearby, he approached for assistance, hoping to retrieve his lost funds. Unfortunately, that encounter did not go as he had hoped. Izuku expressed concern, questioning whether Spinner was treated fairly at his job. Spinner admitted that he was not, but it was the only place willing to hire an underage mutant. He felt looked down upon and underpaid, yet he reasoned that being paid half of what he deserved was still better than receiving nothing at all. Izuku offered Spinner a place to stay, reassuring him that he was welcome. Spinner hesitated, expressing his apprehension about potentially bringing trouble to Izuku. He worried that if others discovered Izuku was helping a mutant like him, they would respond with hostility and criticism. Izuku dismissed those concerns, stating that he would continue to help people regardless of the consequences. He emphasized that his actions were driven by a desire to do what was right, not for fame. He wanted to share the truth of what happened, and anyone who criticized him for helping Spinner was not a good person. Spinner, feeling desperate after having his pay stolen, admitted he had no money for food or water. Izuku reassured him that the room he had woken up in was now his, as long as he treated others with respect and did not cause any damage. Spinner then asked if Izuku could change his appearance to make him look like a normal person. Izuku paused to consider the request before responding. He explained that while he was willing to help upgrade Spinner's quirk, he would not change his appearance. He had transformed another individual's quirk because it made living a normal life challenging, but he believed that Spinner should not change himself simply because of others' ignorance. Spinner questioned why he would want to look different, to which Izuku replied that experiencing pain could help one empathize with others who were suffering. He had observed that many people around them had been hurt by circumstances beyond their control, and he had even written a song about it. Toga, intrigued, expressed her eagerness to hear the song. Izuku looked around at the others, who also showed interest, and decided to share his music with them. Izuku believed that sometimes it takes someone who can relate, sympathize, and understand the pain others are experiencing to truly help them. He felt that Spinner had the potential to assist those who had faced similar mistreatment. Spinner was taken aback by Izuku's faith in his ability to help others. He expressed his doubts, questioning how he could make a difference when he felt his quirk was nothing special and his physical situation was less than remarkable. Izuku reassured him, stating that the quirk itself was merely a tool. He pointed out that it was the effort and training Spinner had put into his abilities that made him strong. Even without his quirk, Stain could still defeat multiple heroes. Stain acknowledged Izuku's point, admitting that his quirk wasn't particularly strong or special and that he had needed extensive training to utilize it effectively. Izuku then reiterated his offer to help upgrade both Stain's and Spinner's quirks. Curious, Spinner asked what changes Izuku would propose first. Stain also expressed interest in hearing the suggestions. Izuku decided to start with Stain, believing it would help Spinner feel more secure to see the changes happen first. Stain agreed, stating that Izuku had earned his trust. Izuku began outlining the changes he envisioned for Stain's quirk. He proposed the ability to paralyze anyone simply by seeing their blood, which would enhance the effects of his quirk when he ingested it. He also suggested granting Stain the ability to sense any blood in the vicinity, determining whether it was inside a person or outside, with the option to control this ability. Finally, he offered the most powerful change, the ability to control his own blood and imbue it with the effects of his quirk, along with increased blood production and storage capacity. Izuku asked for Stain's thoughts on these changes, emphasizing their potential and power. Stain found the changes impressive but inquired specifically about the second change. Izuku explained that this ability would allow Stain to sense those around him, identifying if anyone was injured and in need of help. This would be particularly useful as Stain planned to target villains more actively, and it would enhance his stealth capabilities. Stain appreciated this insight and agreed to the changes, valuing the added stealth. Izuku warned him that the process might be uncomfortable but would not be painful. Stain was ready to proceed, expressing his willingness to endure any discomfort. As Izuku worked on Stain's quirk, Stain felt a warmth in his body, which was more uncomfortable than painful. Once the changes were complete, Izuku handed him some water. Stain thanked him, noting that the experience was indeed uncomfortable but not painful. Izuku then turned to Spinner, asking if he still wanted to explore changes for his quirk. He reassured Spinner that he was not obligated to accept any changes he didn't like. Spinner, intrigued, encouraged Izuku to proceed, confident that his quirk wasn't overly complicated. Izuku began assessing Spinner's quirk, noting that while some changes were beneficial, others were quite unfortunate. He explained that Spinner was lucky with how his parents' quirks had combined. He elaborated on some of the less desirable traits, such as inheriting the intelligence of a lizard, being compelled to follow lizard-like instincts, and the need to shed skin every few months, which would be uncomfortable. Spinner was shocked by these possibilities and asked about the positive changes Izuku could propose, seeking to distract himself from the unsettling thoughts. Izuku outlined the beneficial changes he envisioned. First, he suggested the ability to adopt the traits of any lizard, allowing Spinner to gain physical features like claws, tails, or even fangs and poison, either temporarily or permanently. Second, he would enhance Spinner's overall abilities, making him stronger, faster, and improving his reaction time and instincts. Lastly, he proposed a unique twist on the shedding process, allowing Spinner to heal any wounds, including missing limbs, once every 4 months. Spinner was impressed by this last change but had 2 questions: whether shedding would be mandatory and if any negative instincts would be amplified. Izuku clarified that shedding would be optional, with the 4-month timeframe applying only if he chose to use it, and assured Spinner that only beneficial traits would be enhanced. Spinner expressed his agreement, stating he saw no reason to refuse the changes. Izuku warned him that he might feel uncomfortable for a longer PRD than Stain had, as the modifications were more extensive. Spinner reassured him that discomfort was something he was accustomed to. Once Izuku completed the changes and Spinner began to feel better, Izuku suggested that Spinner should research various lizards, noting that some were truly fascinating. He mentioned that with enough strength and control over his quirk, Spinner could potentially adopt traits from prehistoric lizards. The group was taken aback by this revelation, prompting Spinner to question why Izuku hadn't mentioned it earlier. Izuku explained that he wanted Spinner to make a thoughtful decision based on his desires rather than impulsively chasing power. Spinner found this reasoning understandable. Izuku then mentioned he would spend some time with Eri before editing the unreleased videos, particularly the one about the commission raid. He concluded that he hoped they enjoyed the updates or at least didn't dislike them. The following day, Izuku woke up early to head to the police station, following the address provided by Nizu. Upon arrival, he found 3 individuals outside the station, 2 police officers and an ectoplasm clone, who informed him he was there to guide Izuku inside. Izuku requested to be shown the way, emphasizing the urgency of addressing the situation. The ectoplasm clone nodded and led him to Nizu, who welcomed Izuku and praised him for arriving early. Izuku reiterated the importance of resolving matters quickly to prevent innocent individuals from being unjustly detained. Nizu agreed and instructed Izuku to follow him to meet the detective and review the rooms where individuals were being held. For the next several hours, Nizu guided Izuku through the station, where Izuku would present details about various crimes. The detective would then verify the information before questioning the individuals about their involvement, ensuring that the truth would be revealed regardless of their responses. After about 5 hours, they completed the reviews, and as Izuku made his way toward the exit, Nizu called out to him. Nizu requested that Izuku delay the release of his videos concerning the hero and his victim until the commission situation was resolved. Izuku reluctantly agreed, understanding Nizu's intent to prevent escalating issues. However, he made it clear that if the resolution took too long, he would proceed with releasing the videos anyway. Nizu assured him that they aimed to address the situation promptly. Izuku then asked if he could release the video of the commission raid, to which Nizu consented, noting that the public was already aware of it and that its release might help calm tensions. After returning home, Izuku shared the day's events and his conversation with Nizu with everyone. Spinner acknowledged the wisdom in waiting to release the videos, recognizing that the current tension was already high. Izuku pointed out that the delay would also give them more time to train and adjust to their upgraded quirks before the public became aware of them. Everyone agreed that this was a positive aspect. A month later, Izuku sat at home with a sleeping Eri on his lap, reflecting on the events of the past month. He noted that the news had predictably gone into a frenzy when the video of the commission raid and interrogations was posted online. Many people were outraged that the villains had been released by the commission, particularly those who were aware of their past actions. 2 weeks prior, Izuku had contacted Nizu after noticing that the commission restructuring was taking longer than anticipated. Nizu informed him that even after everything that had transpired, some individuals were still vying for more power, which had resulted in him dealing with a number of frustrating situations. Izuku, feeling frustrated, informed Nizu that he would visit certain individuals to investigate any potential crimes. He discovered that one was a corrupt politician who covered up offenses, accepted bribes, abused his power, and failed to uphold any promises made to secure his position. Another individual was a victim of the previous commission's corruption, determined to ensure that the commission remained on the right path. The last person turned out to be a follower of All for One. Upon learning this, Izuku acted swiftly, knocking the individual out without hesitation. He then brought the captured follower to Nizu, sharing all the gathered information. As a result, 2 candidates were arrested, while the one honest individual was appointed as president, publicly recognized with a recommendation from Azrael. Izuku recalled the public's reaction to the videos he had released and the responses he encountered online. It was frustrating to see some individuals attempting to defend the actions of the fraudulent hero. 3 weeks earlier, the news was discussing the videos he had posted while Izuku was in the common room of the apartment with his friends. Spinner mentioned that Izuku had released the video regarding the fake hero and their earlier conversation about enhancing their quirks. Izuku confirmed that he had waited long enough to share the videos, believing it was time to shed light on the issue. Mustard agreed, noting that Izuku had waited 3 weeks and that having a prominent figure behind the movement would help advocate for fair treatment of mutant quirk holders. Stain added that sometimes people just needed someone significant in their corner to initiate change. As Stain finished speaking, the news broadcast began. Breaking news announced that Azrael had released 2 new videos, explaining that he had held off on posting them until the situation with the commission had stabilized. The news anchor warned viewers that the first video contained disturbing content. The first video showcased the moment Izuku and Eri intervened when the fake hero attacked Spinner, including the conversation between Izuku and the fake hero, as well as the consequences the fake hero faced and how Izuku ensured he was taken by a trustworthy hero. The news anchor commented on the shocking level of hatred directed at individuals with mutant quirks, emphasizing that the fake hero seemed to believe his career was ruined solely due to his quirk being compromised, rather than acknowledging his wrongdoing. The next video featured Izuku conversing with Spinner, revealing Spinner's backstory and the song Izuku had sung for him, along with the enhancements made to Spinner's and Stain's quirks. The news anchor remarked on the troubling treatment Spinner received from his parents due to his quirk, which was hypocritical given its influence from their own. The anchor also expressed appreciation for the song and the positive direction Stain planned to take moving forward. A few days later, while reading some of the negative comments directed at mutant quirk holders following his video release, Izuku decided to write a song with a message for them. He set everything up to record and began by addressing his audience, stating that he had composed a song in response to the terrible comments he had seen about mutant quirk holders. Do not apologize or feel bad because of what those ignorant individuals say. They have no right to judge you. You didn't choose to be born or how you look, so never feel like you are in the wrong for it. No one has the right to judge you for something beyond your control. After posting that video, the first few comments came from some of the haters, which Izuku chose to ignore as he focused on the other comments. He felt a sense of happiness seeing people express their appreciation for the song, and some individuals who admitted to having mutant quirks were touched by the message. Izuku reflected on the past month and felt satisfied, noting that the commission seemed to be on the right path now. Meanwhile, in a hidden lab, All for One expressed his annoyance that his plan had been exposed. He had anticipated the revelation but still found it frustrating. On another note, he realized that the more quirks Izuku upgraded, the more he desired them. Unfortunately, his body was not strong enough to handle any more powerful quirks due to the injuries he had suffered. Just after he finished contemplating the events of the last month, both Stain and Dabi rushed into Izuku's house, startling Eri awake. Dabi urgently instructed Izuku to turn on the news, indicating it was an emergency. Unsure of what was happening but trusting that Dabi and Stain wouldn't joke about something like this, Izuku turned on the TV while hugging Eri to calm her down. Breaking news reported that a peaceful protest advocating for the fair treatment of mutant quirk holders, organized by non-mutants to show their support, had been attacked by a villain with a mutant quirk. This villain had been wreaking havoc, leaving everyone baffled by his actions. Upon seeing this, Izuku jumped up and rushed toward the apartment building. When he arrived, he asked Toga and Mustard to watch over Eri, as they were the first people he encountered. He noticed they were also watching the news, so he didn't need to explain why he placed Eri on the couch before rushing out of the building, shouting that he was going to help. As he approached the location, he witnessed the villain rampaging. One of the protesters shouted at the villain, demanding to know who he was and why he was doing this. The villain, identifying himself as Rage, responded that he was attacking because non-mutants could hate mutants, so mutants could retaliate in kind. The protester insisted that they were there to support mutants, not to hate them. Rage dismissed this, stating he simply wanted an excuse to attack. He then attempted to stomp on an injured civilian's head but was stopped by a light barrier. Izuku, who had been preparing to shoot, quickly shielded the civilian, resulting in only a single shot hitting Rage's shoulder instead of incapacitating him completely. Rage, infuriated, cursed at Izuku, who calmly pointed out that his actions were unjustifiable. He also noted that he could see through Rage's facade. Just then, Stain rushed out from an alleyway and stabbed Rage in the other shoulder with a knife made of his blood, paralyzing him upon contact. While paralyzed, Rage accused Stain of sneak attacking and teaming up on him, calling him a coward. Izuku replied that the taunts wouldn't change anything. He felt a twinge of regret about the quick takedown but emphasized the need to act swiftly to help those who were hurt or trapped due to Rage's attack. With that, Izuku knocked the villain out with a punch, causing the back of his head to hit the pavement. He then tied Rage up with light before going around to heal everyone he could see while Stain checked buildings for trapped individuals. By this time, Dabi had joined them to help with the fires that had erupted during the attack. As things began to calm down and the heroes and police finished their work, Izuku was called over by Nizu, who was accompanied by 2 police officers, a detective, and 2 news crews. Nizu asked if he could ask a few questions about the villain they had captured. Izuku agreed and prepared to answer. Nizu posed the significant question first, inquiring about the conversation Izuku had with the civilian he saved and what he meant when he said Rage didn't really look like that. Izuku explained that he had seen memories and understood Rage's motivations for the attack. He clarified that Rage's real name was Shifting Face, and his quirk allowed him to temporarily adopt the form and characteristics of anyone from whom he had a DNA sample. He had been paid to attack the protest while pretending to be a mutant to escalate tensions between the 2 sides. Izuku then slapped the villain awake, ensuring he could hear the changes he planned to make to his quirk. He informed Rage that he would alter his abilities so that he could only change one part of his body at a time. Every time someone alters a part of their body, it brings immense pain, akin to the agony of broken bones and torn flesh. Even if one chooses to change their appearance, it remains purely visual. They do not gain any characteristics of the person they are mimicking, no extra strength, powers, or even a change in voice. After transforming his quirk, Izuku revealed memories of a man who had committed numerous crimes. He presented a shocking list of offenses, including identity theft, and even serious charges that left everyone stunned. This man, despite having a normal family and a promising quirk, chose a path of wrongdoing, believing he could escape accountability due to his abilities. Izuku emphasized the importance of recognizing one's humanity. He reminded everyone that power can corrupt if one allows it, and that no one is perfect or invincible. It is our flaws that define us, and when someone believes they are above others, they begin to stray from the path of righteousness. In the end, everyone, heroes and villains alike, shares a common humanity, differentiated only by their actions and beliefs. After delivering the villain to the authorities, Nizu asked Izuku if he could check on those in the emergency evacuation bunkers and inform them that it was safe to come out. Izuku agreed and flew to the bunker. Upon entering, he encountered many frightened individuals, including several children. He learned that a nearby preschool had evacuated its youngest students to ensure their safety. Izuku praised the adults for their decision, explaining that rushing through the chaos could have endangered the children. He offered his assistance, asking if anyone was injured. A few people, including some children, approached him, and he quickly tended to a broken arm. Once he had healed the injury, he decided to contact Nizu to send help and inform him about the children, in case their parents were looking for them. After relaying the situation, Izuku stepped outside to ensure he had a clear phone signal. As he made the call, he noticed a noise coming from an alleyway next to a slightly damaged shop and office building. Curious, he went to investigate. In the alley, he found a little girl huddled in a corner, seemingly untouched by the chaos around her. As he approached, he noticed her eyes were bandaged, indicating she might not be able to see him or her surroundings. Izuku gently asked her what she was doing alone and if she was injured. The child, initially startled, responded with a hint of fear in her voice, explaining that she had been sleeping and awoke to loud noises and screaming. Terrified, she had chosen to stay. Seeing the dirty pillow and blankets around her filled Izuku with sadness. A homeless, blind child left alone on the streets was a heartbreaking sight. He wondered how no one had helped her. Then he decided to ask her name. The girl replied, introducing herself as Noroi. A young girl approached Izuku, her eyes filled with curiosity, and asked if he was a hero. Izuku, however, clarified that he was not exactly a hero but a vigilante named Azrael. The girl, Noroi, mentioned that she had heard adults talking about him, saying he was essentially a hero at this point. Izuku then posed 3 questions to her, seeking to understand her better. He asked why she was named Noroi, knowing that her name meant curse. She explained that when she asked her mother about it, her mother had said it was because her father left due to her, making her a curse deserving of such a name. For his second question, Izuku inquired about her constant smiling, even when discussing her mother. Noroi replied that she believed smiling made her strong, and her mother had taught her that good girls must smile to make others happy. Izuku felt a wave of sadness wash over him and asked his final question about what had happened to her eyes. Although she continued to smile, he noticed a moment of hesitation, and her smile appeared strained. Noroi revealed that her mother had expressed hatred for her eyes because they reminded her of her father. After her mother developed her quirk, her eyes changed slightly, leading her mother to call her evil. In an attempt to please her mother, Noroi had poured a mixture of bleach and other chemicals into her eyes. Horrified and saddened by her story, Izuku struggled to maintain his composure and asked where her mother was now. He felt a surge of anger, wishing he could confront her mother for what she had done. Noroi replied that her mother had left her there with instructions to wait until she returned, but it had been a long time. Unable to hold back his emotions any longer, Izuku embraced her in a comforting hug. Surprised, Noroi asked what he was doing. He explained that hugs were a way to show care and support, especially when someone was sad or hurt. He reassured her that what her mother did was wrong and encouraged her to express her feelings instead of forcing herself to smile. He urged her to cry and shout, reminding her that children should not hide their sadness. As he comforted her, he felt her sobbing into his chest. He decided to take her back to the emergency bunker. Upon entering, the adults noticed the crying child and expressed their concern, asking if everything was all right. Izuku reassured them that everything was okay and that Noroi was just processing some sad information. He informed them that the heroes and police would arrive soon. Finding an unoccupied spot on the floor, Izuku sat down with Noroi still in his arms. Noticing the other children in the shelter were also scared and worried, he decided to distract them for a while by singing a song. By the time he finished, he noticed that she had calmed down and fallen asleep in his arms. Looking around, he saw that many of the other children were beginning to look sleepy too. A few minutes later, the help Nizu sent arrived and got to work assisting everyone. One of the police officers approached Azrael to discuss getting the child in his arms to the designated meeting point for families and evacuated citizens. Izuku explained that there was no need, as she was homeless and no one would be waiting for her. He expressed his determination to look after her, feeling a strong need to help due to her sad history. His firm voice indicated he was unwilling to compromise on this matter. Unbeknownst to him, he was being influenced by the downside of the power he had gained from absorbing Aries' father's blessings, which instilled a strong protective instinct for children. The police officer, realizing he could not change Azrael's mind, decided to inform Nizu and let him handle the situation. After sorting out everything with the evacuees, Nizu approached Azrael. He inquired about the situation with the little girl and why Azrael was acting so protectively. Upon hearing Nizu's observation, Azrael realized the effect of the blessings and shared both the story of the girl and the implications of his newfound instincts. Nizu acknowledged the girl's difficult background but questioned how being protective of children could be seen as a downside. Azrael speculated that it made him more impulsive and less rational when it came to protecting them, though only slightly more reckless. Nizu expressed his hope that Azrael would take good care of her, believing she needed proper love from someone who genuinely cared. Azrael, feeling slightly offended, asserted that he would provide the love and care she needed. He emphasized that when he accepted someone into his family, he did so with the commitment to protect them at all costs. Nizu clarified that he had not meant to offend, having seen how Azrael interacted with Eri. He merely pointed out that the girl would require a lot of support. After taking a few deep breaths, Azrael apologized for his reaction, explaining that he was very protective of the little family he had built. Following their conversation, he decided it was time to leave, informing Stain and Dobby that he was going home with his new child. Once he arrived home, he entered the apartment building with his new addition to the family. He knew he would need to talk to her about changing her name, refusing to call her by a name that felt like a curse. Upon reaching the common room, he found Toga, Slime, Mustard, and Eri watching the news. They greeted him, and Slime asked about the child he had brought with him. Azrael explained that she would likely be his second child and called Eri over, stating it was time to go home and get everything sorted for her sister. Using his light manipulation, he gently lifted the girl off the sofa. He assured everyone that they would discuss things further tomorrow once everyone was rested. As they left the apartment building, Azrael spoke to Eri, telling her that her new sister had a sad story and to be kind to her. Eri asked for her name, and Azrael explained that he needed to discuss changing it since it was meant as an insult. He elaborated that the girl's mother had been a bad woman who had wrongfully blamed her for things beyond her control. Upon arriving home, Azrael informed Eri that he would sort out some new clothes for her sister and prepare food for both of them. Asked if she could keep an eye on the girl while he was busy. Eri eagerly agreed, promising to watch over her. Azrael chuckled and handed her the TV remote for entertainment. Halfway through cooking, Noroi woke up, and Eri excitedly began chatting with her about simple things like her age and interests. Noroi responded to her questions, albeit still confused about her situation. Once the food was ready, Azrael called them to eat while it was hot. Eri got up and headed to the kitchen, while Azrael picked up Noroi. Noroi asked why she was there, and Azrael explained that he couldn't leave a little one like her alone. He expressed his desire for her to join his family, asking if that was something she would be willing to do. He reassured her that it was time to eat and that he bet she was very hungry, sitting her at the table next to him. He offered to help her eat, and Noroi, still a bit shocked, nodded absent-mindedly. After they finished eating, Azrael led them to the living room. Noroi, still processing everything, asked if he truly meant what he had said about wanting her to be part of his family. Azrael affirmed his sincerity, explaining that she needed someone to care for her and show her real love and support. Noroi nodded in response, and Izuku smiled warmly before asking a significant question. He inquired if she wanted him to heal her eyes. Noroi was taken aback and hesitated, wondering if it was truly possible. Izuku assured her that he could, but only if she wished for it. After some time, she finally agreed, and Izuku felt a surge of happiness at her decision. He proceeded to heal her, instructing her to keep the bandage over her eyes for a while to help her body adjust to the healing. He then mentioned that she needed a bath and a change of clothes. Once he finished cleaning her up and dressing her in fresh attire, he prepared to remove the bandage covering her eyes. He did this in front of a mirror so she could see herself. After removing the bandage, he advised her to open her eyes slowly, allowing them to adjust to the light, which was likely sensitive after the healing. As she opened her eyes, she first caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. After admiring her reflection for a moment, she turned her gaze to Izuku and Eri, surprised to find that Izuku looked younger than she had imagined, and Eri did not resemble him at all, leading her to conclude that they were not related. Noticing her expression, Izuku chuckled softly and explained that he had adopted Eri, just as he was doing with her. He shared that Eri had come from a difficult situation, and he had been caring for her, just as he wanted to care for Noroi. As he spoke, Noroi noticed the scars on Eri's arms and felt a pang of curiosity. She asked why he kept calling her sweetie. Izuku took this opportunity to express his desire to change her name, insisting that he would not refer to her as a curse. He explained that her mother had been at fault, blaming her for things that were not her responsibility. Noroi was taken aback. She had never considered changing her name before, and it was the first time someone had pointed out that her mother was in the wrong. Curious about his suggestion, she asked what name he had in mind. Deep down, she longed for a name that wouldn't hurt her, and she hoped his recommendation would reflect his sincerity. Izuku proposed the name Dori, which meant gift of God in French, believing that she was indeed a gift, one that her mother had failed to recognize. Touched by the meaning behind his choice, Noroi agreed to the name. Once everything was settled, Izuku announced that it was time for bed. It had been a few days since Eri officially became Izuku's daughter. He had just returned from a routine outing and was about to turn off his drone when he heard Eri crying. He rushed to her side, forgetting the drone that followed him into her room. The light was off, so the camera couldn't capture her face, but it recorded her voice and outlined her figure. Izuku hurried to her and expressed his concern. He asked if she was okay and if she had another nightmare, his voice filled with worry and care. Eri nodded, sharing her troubling memories of being taken apart. Izuku comforted her, acknowledging that nothing he said could erase her past, but reassured her that she was safe now and that he would always protect her. Grateful, Eri hugged him and asked if he could sing for her. Izuku agreed and decided to play a song from the movie they had watched together, Peter Pan. Eri eagerly accepted his offer. As he stepped back, he summoned a piano made of holy energy and light, showcasing his unique abilities. Once he finished the song, he noticed that Eri was still crying, touched by the music. He apologized, explaining that it was the first song that came to mind when she shared her story. He then promised to play another song, inspired by both her and Dabi's experiences, highlighting their resilience and desire to do good despite their pasts.